right spot. And
you
did
did a
not
great job.
spill liquid all over my laptop like some people do.
Yeah, that's only happened one time.
By the way, the keyboard still doesn't work at all. It doesn't respond to anything.
Oh, that's good.
I don't want you to feel bad or anything.
Well, I do now, heading into this holiday weekend, so sorry about that.
That's all right.
Elijah, what's going on? How we doing?
Pretty good. Nice and dry back here. Haven't spilled anything on any valuable equipment here, so we're doing pretty good so far.
That is good.
It's early.
Nice night for Brook Lopez last night. Playoff legend, Brook Lopez for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Hey, that's Nets all-time leading scorer, Brook Lopez, to you.
It is. You're right. How
By
about
4
that?
points.
33 last night for Brook Lopez. And the Milwaukee Bucks, without Giannis, they get it done. 123 to 112 against the Atlanta Hawks last night. Obviously, Atlanta did not play Trae Young last night either. So, and now my audio is going off. Usually that's a Joe Rexrode thing.
I was looking at my computer. I'm like, oh, no, here we go again.
But anyway, big win for Milwaukee last night. So this run that I had of calling games correctly this week, that ended yesterday, Joe Rexrode.
14 for 18 for Brook Lopez.
Not bad.
You know what? Brook Lopez, he frustrates me sometimes because he just wants to launch, threes all day.
They don't call him Splash Mountain for nothing.
But,
That's right.
That's good. But, yeah, when he plays with efficiency, hitting those 2-point shots, get 26 from Middleton, man, they looked like they were okay without Giannis.
What does that mean?
I mean, there are times when there's probably not like the worst thing, right, in terms of offensive flow.
Yeah, with when Giannis isn't just pounding the air out of the ball and dribbling into a 7-foot center and then looking frantically to pass the ball out with 5 seconds of the shot clock. Yeah, that happens sometimes.
You two
It does happen. No,
you two are ready to run him out of town.
I like Giannis a lot, and he's a tremendous I mean, he does some things that just are special. But yes, at times offensive efficiency is not like he's not the conduit for that.
It's probably fair.
Get him in transition and just get out of the way, and
How about
special.
the Bobby Portis last night, 22. Drew Holiday had 25 and 13 last night. Brook Lopez, like if they all played that well with Giannis in the lineup, they
No one's
scored
beating them.
170 points
right,
last night.
they'd win. They're winning it.
Yeah.
They're winning it. Yeah,
Pretty impressive.
it's going to
for
be
the
Bucks Suns. It's going to be Bucks Suns, and I'm here for it. I'm excited about it.
One win away now from the NBA Finals for the Milwaukee Bucks. They would take on the Phoenix Suns at that point. I don't know. We talked about this yesterday. Who's the favorite in that series? Is it Phoenix? Is it Milwaukee? I think it's pretty close. I might give the slight edge to the Bucks. I don't know, though. Phoenix playing pretty well right now.
I don't know.
I think if it's Atlanta, it's pretty clear who the favorite is.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like the Suns. I would favor the Suns, but Vegas might favor the. I don't know. What do you think?
Ooh, it's going to depend on Giannis' health too.
Well, that's true.
Like
Obviously,
how
yeah.
close to ready is he? But if Giannis is healthy, and say they blow out Atlanta in Game 6, then it'd be hard not to say the Bucks, just because they are a little bit deeper, I would say.
Yeah,
But
I'm assuming Giannis. Yeah, obviously, if he's not back, then it's certainly the Suns are the favorite. But
Bobby Portis dropping 22, you're going to be the favorite. That's just how that works.
that's true. You're feeling good about things. 8 rebounds too.
I predicted a big night last night from my guy Kevin Herter, and that didn't quite happen. 8 points, 3 of 12 from the field.
That's
a tough one last night.
2 of 7 from 3. He did have 7 assists.
Yes, he did.
He did some good things out there. I mean, they're just so different. They're just so different without Trae. They're really limited. I mean, Capella played, but it's just a very different team. They don't have much chance. But I think he'll probably be back next. I think there's a better chance he's back next game than Giannis has. I would guess, just based on the injuries. So the idea that this might go another game certainly is not a crazy thought at all. This could certainly get to 7.
It could, and one of those things now where here we are potentially 1 game away from the NBA Finals. The Stanley Cup Final already 2 games down, going for Game 3 tonight in Montreal. Getting close to the sporting calendar being a little bit limited at this point. College World Series is over as well. By the time you get back from vacation, which you're going to be on next week, it could be pretty bleak out there.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Usually the College World Series is like the last thing.
Yeah.
Like usually the College World Series is right after what? I mean, it's right around the time of the draft. I guess sometimes the finals would maybe touch it at the very beginning of it, right? But basically, it's like the last thing, and then it's like, okay, you got baseball. You got baseball, you got MLS, regular season stuff, and you got everybody, trying to figure out what's going to happen in training camp and just counting the hours until that starts. So at least this gets you into, we're getting into July with stuff, but I think next year we're going to be back on that regular calendar, right? I've kind of liked. So. I haven't liked a lot of it, but I've kind of liked like some stuff that really matters in July and August.
Yeah.
Oh well, we'll take complete normalcy.
Well, there was a talk for a while of the NBA maybe pushing their schedule back and starting a little bit later.
But apparently that was just talk.
Apparently that was just talk because they're going back to late October, early November.
And there's NHL at this point.
NHL, they're getting back to normal.
They're getting back to normal too. Like so,
probably mid-October.
Mid-October. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think there's a case to be made to wait and start later, but the bottom line is you're not going to reduce your inventory.
No.
So if you're not going to do that, then you probably need to stay on roughly the same timeline, unless you really want to condense a season, and nobody really wants that either.
Yeah, like I think both the NBA and the NHL could probably benefit from starting a little bit later, just because of college football, the NFL. Unless you're a diehard NBA fan or a diehard NHL fan, like how much attention is the casual sports fan paying in, the first week of November to the NBA and the NHL? Probably not much.
And then the flip side is now what we're seeing, you get stuff into July.
Yeah.
Is that bad?
Why
is that bad?
I wouldn't think so. Now, I understand it a little bit more from the NHL point of view because, trying to keep ice cold when it's 112 outside can be challenging.
It's a good point. Well, honestly, to me the NHL should want to be separated more from the NBA. Agreed. However that happens, like if your Stanley Cup final is either early in the NBA playoffs or after the NBA finals are over and you have the states yourself, to me that's beneficial to you. You don't want to be competing with the late stages of the, right? How do you make that happen? Well, it's probably you're not going to move it up, so you're going to have to move it back. But hey, they also don't want to go to the Olympics, so
well, there's that. There's that too. Maybe not the best decisions being made over there, but I really thought the NBA, like, there was some serious momentum to move it back. Like, I heard there's a lot of talk about, hey, let's start the NBA season around Christmas and just go from there. Which, it kind of makes a lot of sense to do that. But it doesn't look like, at least for the moment, that's what's going to happen. You'd basically take the NBA Finals then if you had you've got to space it out the same. So you would basically take it to like preseason football, right? Yeah.
And then again, from the NHL's perspective, now their stuff, if they say on the same clock, is like the beginning of the NBA playoffs. Great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And most of their playoffs are just the end of the regular season. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great for the sports fan to have big separation there and to not have what we usually have, which is, I understand that there's also a benefit, I guess, to downtime, but to me, that's just a big void in the sports calendar that would be great for fans if it were filled better.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, to your point, this year, usually, there's never nothing going on. You've got Major League Baseball, you've got Major League Soccer, so you can get your sports fix if you want to.
Got tennis going on behind you right now.
We got Wimbledon.
Got some good tennis.
I'm a big fan of Wimbledon. I don't know how many people are a big fan of Wimbledon, but I am.
I watched Federer yesterday. That was really fun to watch.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. So I love Wimbledon, but there's always something to watch sports-wise, but usually, you can make an argument that the best sporting month of the year is October. Now, I would probably make the argument that it's April just because I love it, but at least in October there's actual football going on, right? So you can make with football, hockey starting, NBA starting, baseball in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Pretty good month.
That's I would say probably the best month. I'm also, I'm very partial to March myself.
Sure.
But that
Rexrode doesn't leave his house in March.
November too, because November then you get into like the college basketball, like holiday tournaments.
Rexrode and Elijah sitting together on the couch watching the Atlantic Sun tournament.
It's a good tournament, man.
That sure is.
Hey, one of the few that still plays it on
right.
home courts.
That's right.
It's got a charm.
Man, Lipscomb had the A-Sun one. Oh, man. That was a heck of a
that was brutal.
Yeah.
Y'all thought I was joking. I'm not.
No?
Rexrode and Elijah watching the A-Sun tournament. Good for
No,
y'all.
I'm not kidding. Yeah, in the month of March, I'm basically locked in my room. My room becomes a cave for a while, and it's
the
real deal.
Being covering some team out there, but like I kind of liked, like, you know what? Just you can cover the Vols from your couch and then just watch all the other stuff.
That's
I
right.
I kind of like this.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that going back too, I guess. By the way, the Vols got a big commit, another one, Rick Barnes.
Yeah.
Point guard out of Knoxville,
Yeah,
Knoxville Catholic, and his name's eluding me right now, Elijah.
Eluding me too, but
It's
a big one.
He's essentially a very hotly pursued point guard, and he's essentially going to be the successor to Kennedy Chandler. If Kennedy Chandler is
One and done,
as it's not a guarantee at all, but a lot of people who know basketball think that he will be.
B.J. Edwards.
Thank you, B.J. Edwards. So he's on a roll. That's the first recruit for 22, but the train keeps rolling there.
Speaking of the train rolling, the Predators' offseason got rolling in a pretty big way yesterday with a trade of Victor Arvidsson to the L.A. Kings. We'll get to the reaction of that coming up next. What does that mean for the Predators, and what does it mean for the rest of this offseason? That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. That was Nashville Predators general manager David Poile on yesterday with Darren Donica-Chase discussing the trade of Victor Arvidsson to the Los Angeles Kings. The Predators receive a second-round pick in 2021, a third-round pick in 2022, and Victor Arvidsson heading to the LA Kings. Joe, I knew something was going to happen this offseason. I think if memory serves me correctly, both you and I called the shot that Victor Arvidsson was going to be traded this offseason. So, virtual high five to you.
Yeah.
Your initial reaction to the trade, the return for the Predators, getting 2 draft picks, 1 in the second round, 1 in the third round. Are you surprised that it happened before the expansion draft? Just everything, the complete picture with this trade from Victor Arvidsson going to L.A. What was your initial reaction when you saw the news?
Well, initial reaction on any of this is, for this particular guy being traded, not surprised. One, we've talked about it. I mean, we've been not only those called shots, but we've discussed the possibility and how he kind of he was the easiest one to move, I think, right? Because the contract, because in their lineup, they do have answers there, potential answers, and we'll see. I mean, Poile brought up Tolvanen, and he brought up Tomasino again, like real, in the interview with Darren Donica-Chase. So it makes sense, I think, in terms of their team, the way he's been playing, the way he's been trending. But you can still find someone out there who can say, you know what, I think that guy can get healthy and still be a really good top 6 forward, and he's still young, still has plenty to give. So there was a lot of factors that to me made him the most likely core piece to be moved. And then my next reaction is, okay, what's the return? As we find out yesterday, it's in the works. And honestly, I think it's a pretty good return for the Preds. I think we talked not long ago about maybe just a third or just a second. You get a second and a third, and of course, the third is next year when you have a little bit more normal scouting situation. So, you get the second is this year when you have some limitations that are going to be tied to that choice. But to get both of those, I think it's a good move for the Preds. You got to get some futures. You got to replenish that draft capital. And I think the expansion draft part of it is big because and Vingan and I were talking about this yesterday on the phone. He was going through the King situation. I mean, they're not worried about more than 3 defensemen probably.
Right.
And they got plenty of forwards that they don't mind leaving unprotected. So from their perspective, it's easy. They'll protect him.
He's going to be protected.
Yeah, they'll protect him, and it's not like it's like, oh no, and now we can't protect this guy. The Preds are in a much different situation with that. So, I mean, another thing about that, of course, with Poile in the interview with Darren Donica-Chase, I mean, he all but said if we would have, he basically said it. If we would have, based on conversations, if we would have let him be unprotected, that's who they would have taken. We talked about that too. It totally makes sense.
Yeah,
that would be an easy choice to me.
Yeah.
So look, I think it's the right move and good for them. Finding a trade partner who also, by the way, should have pretty decently high picks for you because they stink.
Yeah, they're not very good. And, this second-round pick probably going to be it's a pretty high second-round pick. The third-round pick probably also going to be a pretty high third-round pick in a draft. Most people would agree next year is a little bit deeper. And as you said, a little bit more normal of a scouting process that goes along with it. Look, I'm not surprised that this has happened. I was kind of interested yesterday at the reaction from the fan base a little bit. There was, I think, a lot of surprise that Victor Arvidsson was traded, and I just don't really understand that. I mean, I get loving the player, and he's a fan favorite, and you're sorry to see him go. I totally understand all that. We've seen this happen here before. I mean, when Shea Weber got traded, yeah, you were excited to have PK Subban coming in, but there are people to this day that are still just gutted by Shea Weber being out of here. So I understand the emotional attachment that Victor Arvidsson has, and I don't want to downplay that, but if you didn't see something like this coming, I don't really know how much attention you've been paying. This core was not going to remain the same. I mean, you've gotten to the point with this core where that just can't happen anymore. So I was not surprised by the move. I'll tell you one thing that did kind of stand out to me. We've got a lot to get to on this today, and we'll take your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. One thing that stood out to me from David Poyle's interview with Darren Donick and Chase was it kind of sounded like at their end-of-season meeting that both Victor Arvidsson and the Predators were like, yeah, fresh start. That may benefit both sides. Like I came away, and the guys on Darren Donick and Chase talked about this yesterday. I came away from that conversation with Poyle yesterday of Victor Arvidsson. I don't know that he requested a trade. I think he certainly was probably okay with the trade for a fresh start, and that was a little interesting to me.
That is interesting. So when you go back to the end of the playoff series, and you remind me how it all went. I think I asked Hines, or somebody asked Hines. I don't know. Like
it was you.
Yeah. Like, was he a scratch? And they said he was hurt, but I mean, is it possible that he could have gone? It would have been a little bit limited, a little bit banged up, and if so, and the fact that he wasn't in the lineup, did that upset him? Did he feel like, or take that away, forget that specific aspect of it, just did he feel like he didn't really fit into what John Hines wanted to do? I will say that I think, and not even just Hines, I think with Poyle, I think that there's probably a little bit of, physicality, especially in the postseason, seems to work. You want speed and physicality, right?
Yeah.
But maybe he felt a little bit devalued here. And honestly, he should have, because his value has gone down. I mean, his production has gone down. But so maybe, I think it kind of does make sense for both sides. It is interesting that would be part of an exit interview, because you remember Poyle at the end of the year was asked, of course, about Arvidsson, and he was like, hey, this is basically, this is exactly the type of guy who everybody says stuff and then he bounces back and has a big year, So it didn't sound like David Poyle. Now, of course, that could also be David Poyle saying that to other GMs. Hey, other GMs, He's going to bounce back and have a big year. I mean, you could certainly, but still, it didn't sound like a guy who was all eager to move on from him.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of see how that played out. But, that was kind of my main takeaway. Number one, you're right. David Poyle all but said that had they left Victor Arvidsson unprotected, that's who Seattle's going to take. So you know that. You'd lose him for nothing at that point. You're at least able to get something out of this. There are people that are disappointed with the return. And I saw this from a national perspective too. So a couple of media guys that I follow in Canada were like, that's all the Predators got for Victor Arvidsson? My first response was, well, have you watched Victor Arvidsson the last couple of years? It's not been great. Not been great out there.
If he was coming off the 34-goal season, then let's have a different conversation.
Well, and, the other part of this is just the state of the league right now, right? It's a flat cap for the foreseeable future. And David Poyle said this yesterday, too. Like, he could have traded Victor Arvidsson to other teams, but what other teams wanted to send back was another player and more salary. And part of the reason you've traded Victor Arvidsson is now you've freed up the $4.25 million that comes along with it for the next 3 years. Now, that's not a huge amount of money, but that's enough to go out and sign somebody if you wanted to.
Like Mikhail Granlund, for example.
Mikhail Granlund. Like that helps you from that standpoint tremendously. So I think your chances of signing Mikhail Granlund just went sky high yesterday with Victor Arvidsson out here. So, look, I don't think you could sit here today and say that the Predators are a better team without Victor Arvidsson, even if that means Mikhail Granlund is coming back. Like, there's still some work that's going to have to be done. And Elliot Friedman was on with Darren Donick and Chase yesterday and said, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first step to like a 3 or 4 step process here. So I don't think by any means the Predators are done this offseason, but interesting trade yesterday. I'm interested that it came before the expansion draft. But to your point with LA and the situation they're in, they're not worried about the expansion draft right now. Victor Arvidsson will be protected. And, look, good for him. Victor Arvidsson was great to deal with here. He didn't have a ton to say in the media, and that's fine. But he was a nice guy. Obviously a very popular player here, and you saw some reaction yesterday from Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson. obviously they are upset to see him go. And we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up next, or coming up a little bit later in the show. But if you didn't see something like this coming, if you're a player, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah.
Like Philip Forsberg had the thumbs down emoji on Instagram yesterday that he put on his Instagram story. And again, I get it. He's one of your close friends. I understand being upset by all this. But if y'all didn't see something like this coming, I don't know what you've been watching. I don't know what you're paying attention to.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, you had to know at some point it just can't. It has to get broken up, and he made the most sense. I almost feel like the reaction is like Pred's Twitter has been screaming for some kind of move like this, and I feel like Pred's Facebook is like, what?
Arvidsson?
Where did that came out of left field?
Well, everybody thinks they should just trade Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene, and yeah, that sounds great. It can't happen. This was a tradable contract that you have.
Well, listen, if this is what you want him to do, this is a step toward making that more possible. You now have taken him away as a possibility for the Kraken, and I tell you what. Also, based on David Poyle and his interview with Darren Donick and Chase yesterday, I feel like there's been a lot of Duchene, Johansson. What do you say? What'll it take? A lot of that. Probably a lot more of that to come. But this is a step toward that. That doesn't mean it'll happen.
We'll continue the conversation on the Victor Arvidsson trade when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Victor Arvidsson trade to the Los Angeles Kings. Who got the better end of this deal? I think a lot of that's going to depend on what version of Victor Arvidsson is showing up in L.A. He's 28 years old. Still, theoretically, should be in the prime of his career, but we know what's happened with Victor Arvidsson the last couple of years. The production has not been the same. The chances have not been the same. And he was, during his heyday here in Nashville, such a threat on the rush, such a threat coming down, breaking in off the wing. 31 goals in 16-17, 29 the following year, and 34 in 58 games in the year where he was just awesome. And his shooting percentage was at 17.4%. He was amazing that year for the Predators when he was healthy. It's not been the same since then. 15 goals in 19-20, and then 10 goals last year in 50 games in the 2021 season. Look, I'm not saying that Victor Arvidsson can't bounce back. I think from a work ethic standpoint, he brings everything to the table that you want. Obviously, from an effort standpoint, we know that. That's how he came to be one of the fan favorites here in Nashville. So, zero part of me questions Victor Arvidsson's work ethic, his desire, his motivation, anything like that. I just wonder if he's got it left in the tank anymore. With all the injuries that he's sustained, with 2 years now of evidence of him just not looking like the same player, is he just going to magically snap out of it when he comes to L.A.? Maybe. I don't know. We've seen that happen before. But my guess would be Arvidsson probably not ever going to get back to 34 goals again in a season. Now, the other part of that is, with the contract that he has at $4.25 million, he doesn't have to justify that contract. If he's a 20-goal guy, $4.25 million is a pretty good price for a 20-goal guy. And we'll see if he can get to that. Certainly going to get some top six opportunities in L.A. with that roster and the young guys that they've got coming up through the mix.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a good contract. In the larger context of a lot of deals that have gone bad, is Jared on vacation right now?
I thought so. Yeah.
Jared Stone, he's on vacation. He's hate texting me at 6:30 in the morning.
Go to bed, dude.
Or stay in bed, or go on the beach. Where is he? Where is Jared on vacation?
I think he's somewhere in Florida.
God, I mean, here he is. He's blowing me up because Jared's the only one in the whole market who's tough on David Poile.
Okay.
Jared's the only one who ever has mentioned that David Poile has made some bad deals. Thank you, Jared. I'm so glad that we have one person in the whole market who ever mentions that David Poile has made some bad deals.
Okay.
That's sarcasm. Enjoy your vacation. Leave me alone. What's he saying now? I mean, okay, all right. Whatever. I'm not. Jared reads when I text him angrily, which does happen too, so I can't I can't claim moral superiority. He usually reads them on the air, but it basically Jared just thinks that we're being too soft on Poile. So let that be known. David Poile has made a lot of deals that have gone badly, and that's kind of where the franchise is. Isn't that have we not discussed this a million times?
At length.
Yeah. Is it okay to say that this particular return at this particular moment is good? I think it is. I think relative to the expectations of the market for Arvidsson, I think it's a good deal. Now, look, what if Arvidsson goes to L.A. and it's a career revival? And what if Kevin Fiala keeps
based on recent evidence, I kind of expect Victor Arvidsson to go to L.A. and it'd be a career revival because that's what happens when the Predators trade people away now, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Fiala. And that's the thing is there's always that possibility. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Arvidsson get healthy,
sure,
and help that franchise turn things around. But yes, then of course Preds fans will look at that and say, "Well, you shouldn't have done this or that." Seth Jones, again, that'll always be a good trade. But as he has become a great player, that happens. That's part of the deal. The tough ones are, like the Turris situation, the Hartman first-round pick. I mean, those are the killers. The Duchesne at this point with the massive deal that so far has not come close. These are the problems. You're in a spot, you're in a bind, you're still the GM.
Well,
this particular move to me was unnecessary. You had to make a move like this, and it's not the only one, but I think the return is pretty good.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind here, I mean, the trade deadline, the trade market, it's not linear. It moves. There are factors involved too. So, look, one year the Predators gave up a first-round pick for Paul Gaustad. All right, Paul Gaustad.
That's not good.
He's a fourth liner. He's very good at faceoffs. He was very good at faceoffs. But like, there's no world normally where you give up a first-round pick for a guy like Paul Gaustad. But that's what the deadline was that year. Like, you had to go. Sometimes it's a seller's market. Sometimes it's a buyer's market. Right now, it's hard to make trades. It's hard to make moves because every team is up against it cap-wise. I mean, David Poile talked about that yesterday. He could have traded Victor Arvidsson elsewhere and probably gotten a better return back in terms of getting a roster player to come help you now. The problem is you're also taking on more money at that point. So it's a different market right now for the trades than it would be if the cap was going up this year. Like, if the cap's going up like it was normally supposed to this year before COVID, you can probably trade Victor Arvidsson for another roster player and not feel that bad about it because the cap's going up. But with the cap remaining flat, and not only remaining flat this year, but probably flat for the next 3 years at least, you have to start thinking about that because you still have Granlund, you still have Ekholm, you still have Forsberg that you've got to re-sign. So, yeah, I saw Predators fans yesterday saying, well, they got $22.5 million worth of cap space. They got a lot of money to play with. They really don't. I mean, they've got a lot of things they're going to have to figure out. Oh, by the way, including the goalie as well.
Right. The goalie, Granlund, extensions. Yeah. I mean, it helps a little bit. I'd love to know some names of some of the potential players who would have been potentially coming back. But also, I mean, I got this question from quite a few people yesterday, actually, which was, okay, so does this signify that this is an all-out rebuild? And my answer is no, but it's at least, what does Vingan call it? The soft
reset.
The soft reset. I mean, I think that's at least what you have to do, including especially cap consideration here, getting some draft capital, getting some futures, while hoping that, basically you're hoping that some young guys are ready. You're hoping Ellie Tolvanen, last year was just the beginning for him, and then he's going to take another step and be locked in as a top six forward who can do everything well enough so that ridiculous shot can be put to use. And then I mean, I don't know if John Hines feels the same way David Poile feels, but I sure feel strongly in saying that Poile thinks Tomasino is making this team and making a difference on this team. I still think that could be early to expect that, but we'll see. But, I mean, this is another – so the soft reset, and then you hope you're competitive. If you're going to be competitive right away without knowing the other moves to come, some of that is really tied to these young guys.
I mean, it is. Look, I was talking to quite a few people yesterday about this trade, this deal. I still think right now with this roster and based on – look, there's still the expansion draft to come. More trades can be made. Free agency, look, maybe they're a little bit more of a player right now in free agency, freeing up some money. I don't know. But right now, I'm not sure this is a playoff team. So you've got to – there's some work to do if you want to get back to the playoffs. I mean, it was a great story to end last year. Let's not forget it took a 27-1 run to get in the playoffs, and it took your goaltender basically stopping 95% of the shots. That's something to keep in mind coming down the stretch.
And you did most of that damage against the dregs of your division, which was admittedly a loaded division at the top. So that made it tough too. So some of your record going into that was the fact that you had to play against three really good teams. But still, it's not like this division next year is going to be a cakewalk. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that could be better than them in that division.
So what does this trade of Victor Arvidsson signal about what the Predators could try to do with the expansion draft? I've got a couple different theories that I want to throw out there. We'll get your reaction coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. That was Preds General Manager David Poile on with Darren, Donick, and Chase yesterday in the aftermath of the Victor Arvidsson trade and how maybe the expansion draft influenced that as well. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, streaming live on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Periscope, as well as the Game Nashville app. Joe, a couple different things stand out to me from those comments. And one of them, actually, I just kind of picked up on, and that was David Poile talking about the different options in the expansion draft. And he said you can protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, or you could go 4 and 4 in terms of forwards and defensemen, which are both true. You can do that. You can also go 5 defensemen and 3 forwards, and he did not bring that up. I wonder, is that something maybe the Predators aren't considering, going 5 defensemen? Because, I think it's pretty clear cut. I look at this roster right now, I'm protecting the 5 defensemen with Carrier, Fabro, Ellis, Ekholm, and Yossi. And then I'm protecting Forsberg. I'm protecting Luke Kunin. And now with Arvidsson out of the mix, you've got to make a tough decision between Yarncroke and Sissons. And other than that, like, who else are you losing that you're afraid of? Like, Tolvanen is not going to be exposed. Tomasino is not going to be exposed. Granlund's not going to be signed probably by that point. He'll be a free agent, so you're not going to lose him. And then you can sign him after the expansion draft. I mean, maybe, but like if you're asking me if I'd rather lose Yakov Trenin or Alex Carrier, sorry, Trenin, but that's not really even a decision for me.
Is he hoping that people haven't noticed what Alex Carrier did this year?
I don't know.
Right? Because it's got to be him. I mean, he'd be the. I mean, there's no way it's Fabro, right? There's no way, right? I mean, I would really not think so.
I wouldn't think so either, but I don't know.
Because that's an easy one. That's a layup for the Kraken, right?
You would think. I don't know. Like right now, that's what I would do. I would protect 5 defensemen. The New York Islanders did it. They were the only team to do it last time with the Vegas expansion draft. I'd go 5 defensemen. I'd protect 3 forwards. And that means one of Sissons or Yarncroke is going to be exposed. Sissons has more term left, so it's probably going to be Yarncroke that's exposed. And you're probably going to lose Yarncroke. Like, that's probably the route it goes right now.
Well, unless
if you go that route.
Unless you make the deal that you need to try to make. But, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you can't strike that deal, then they
you're talking about one of Johansson and Duchesne.
Right. If you can't make that deal, then the expansion draft is really not helping you much.
Agreed.
But I guess that's expansion drafts aren't designed to help the other teams.
Well, they're not. And look, Elliot Friedman was on with Darren, Donick, and Chase in the aftermath of this interview with Poile yesterday and talked about just from the vibe he gets from Seattle, they're not really looking to take on a whole lot of salary. Like they're just not. I mean, you've got to take 60% and you've got to get to that part of the cap floor. So you've got to take 60% of the cap. Elliott doesn't seem to think that they're going to give much consideration to taking either Duchesne or Johansson. And I don't either. Like I think there are going to be other options out there for them to get to their required cap that they need to get to. I did kind of have this thought yesterday, though, and that is you just got another second rounder and third rounder to add to the mix.
Right.
Could both of those be used maybe to sweeten the pot to Seattle to take a Johansson or a Duchesne?
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you have more ammo now to try to do that without depleting yourself. You can still be in a decent position with draft picks and try to make this deal. But, again, they've got to be – like, for them to take on either guy, they've got to be excited about either guy. It still comes down to, like, did they like the idea of that player on their team?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean –
I would – if I were them, I'd be looking at Johansson and liking the potential. I'd be worried about Duchesne and where the trend is.
I agree. Now Elliot Friedman threw out something else pretty interesting yesterday too, and that was Seattle got a lot of interest in Duncan Keith from Chicago, which I don't understand. He's 38 years old. He's a Hall of Fame defenseman. So I get it from that standpoint.
So it's just like a name. That's a name pickup.
But he's 38. And quite frankly, like he's not been very good the last few years. Because, he's played a lot of hockey. He's 38 years old. his defense core around him has sucked, so I get that. Chicago's defense has been awful. But I don't know what a 38-year-old Duncan Keith with a couple years left on his deal does for you if you're Seattle. Other than it's Duncan Keith. He's been a great player. He's a Hall of Fame defenseman. Obviously, you like the leadership there as well. But like on the ice, I don't really know what that does for you.
Yeah, that's like attract the fans move. Which is the funny thing is that's what you think of usually in sports in my lifetime, expansion teams. It's like, okay, well, they're going to be awful. So get like a veteran, the Charlotte Hornets, get Kurt Rambis out there. And, yeah, he won some titles with the Lakers. And, all right, look at those goggles. Like, that's what you think of. But now it's like, hey, Kraken, you guys are going to make a deep run in the first year like the Golden Knights did, right? So, the rules here make it so that you could actually put together a pretty good team. Now, that will never happen again, I'm confident in saying. Like, this the way it broke for them. I'll call that shot right now.
So you're saying they're not going to the Cup final?
yeah, I know. Call me crazy.
That's bold.
But, hey, mate, with Duncan Keith, Matt Duchene, who knows?
I will say, the division they're about to enter into, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not very good.
There is some opportunity there.
LA's not good. Anaheim's not good. Who knows with Edmonton, man? I mean, they should be good enough to make the playoffs, hopefully. Connor McDavid.
Well, with Vezina,
Vezina nominee Mike Smith. Yeah.
How could they not?
But who knows about Calgary? Vancouver was awful last year. Like, it's not a very good division.
That's a good point.
Maybe it's Vegas and Seattle right at the top.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but I mean, it's wild how that all the things that had to happen, and then how that kind of changes the outlook here. It's kind of tough for Seattle because, realistically, they're going to look like an expansion team.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with the Predators now. I still think I think the 5 defenseman route makes sense, but I mean, David Poile did say 7-3 or 4-4. So if it's 4-4, like you're leaving, I would assume Carrier exposed at that point, and you're protecting the 4 forwards would be Forsberg, Cunnin, Yarncroke, Sissons?
Yeah, I guess.
Like, there's no way they're protecting one of Johansson or Duchene. Right?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, no. Again, not only do you not protect them, like you're trying to see what you can do about getting one of them taken. So I don't.
All right. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't think there's any way Matt Duchene's getting protected. Are they going to protect Ryan Johansson?
Yeah, maybe. I guess. I guess. I mean, the fact that he even mentioned 7-3, I mean, that can't be on the table anyway, right?
No.
So maybe he was just maybe you're reading too much in the comment.
I could be.
Might be.
That's what I do this time of year. Expansion draft's only a few days away. The more I've thought about it, the 5 defenseman route makes the most sense. And I don't know. We'll see what happens on that front. One thing that you touched on that I think is absolutely true, I think David Poile feels like Philip Tomasino's ready. And he feels like he's going to be given every opportunity to make the team next year. With Arvidsson gone, there's now a role in the top 6 that is available. And is that going to go to Tolvanen? Is it going to go to Tomasino? I don't know. We'll find out what happens and exactly where Tomasino starts. I guess it's probably not going to be in the top 6, probably on third line somewhere, and probably at the wing. But we'll see what happens on that front. But I think David Poile has made some pretty strong comments the last couple of times that he's talked about Tomasino of, I think they feel like that kid's ready. At least he does. So we'll see what happens in training camp.
So I'll do my disclaimer. This is a disclaimer here. David Poile's had a lot of bad moves since Shea Weber. The team trajectory is tied to that. David Poile's job should be heavily scrutinized right now. There's your little disclaimer. Jared, run along, go on the beach, leave us alone.
Okay. There you
go.
All
right. Do we have to do this every hour? Should we record that as a PSA, and we can just keep running it so Jared doesn't think he's the only person who ever says anything critical about anyone?
Is Shea Weber really where that trajectory started?
Well, I'm saying since Shea Weber, it's been way more bad than good.
Okay.
Since that move, which was good, it's been way more bad than good. Right? I mean, I think that's obvious. That's obvious, and it's been discussed from every angle 10 million times.
I don't know.
Disagree with any of that?
No.
All right. Jared, you're on vacation. Be on vacation.
When we come back, it was a wild day yesterday with the first full day of the name, image, and likeness laws going into effect. We'll recap the best of what we saw yesterday and also get to what this could mean for the future of college athletics in terms of the money that's going to be flowing in and out of these players' pockets. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe, yesterday, the first full day of name, image, and likeness laws going into effect in the world of college sports. And, man, did we see a lot yesterday going on that realm. We talked about it yesterday on the show, the Milo Sweet Tea with Bo Nix, the Auburn quarterback. Apparently the Cameo-like website, I forget what the name of it is now, but where Matt Corral was.
Dreamfield?
Dreamfield.
Yeah,
Dreamfield.
Yep.
Matt Corral going for $10,000 to make videos. Good for him. Hope somebody pays that price for him. There was a couple doozies yesterday. I think my favorite one of all yesterday was Arkansas wide receiver Trey Knox.
Dang it. I knew you were going to go with that.
The PetSmart partnership that he came out with. Trey Knox at wide receiver. A picture with his husky. The PetSmart, an easy way to my heart, is a dog. And Trey Knox got there yesterday. I think he's my favorite of the whole NIL sponsorships yesterday.
He had his pup, Blue, with him. So I love that one. That was great. Yeah, there's a lot of – first of all, like overall, I got to say, I don't know that I've felt this good about college sports in a long – I don't know that I've felt this good about college sports since I've covered it going back, and we're going back a lot of years. Like
you're old.
I'm old. And there's just like – there's often been an uneasy feeling, especially, just in recent years. The money has been so outrageous, and it's just the same thing, for the athletes. Again, a lot of them who just don't end up having these professional opportunities. So overall, it's just been awesome to me. I've loved this. One of my favorites is Jordan Bohannon from Iowa is a paid appearance at a fireworks store. I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
The Iowa basketball player.
Come celebrate America
at the fireworks store. But there's some really good, there's some really interesting things that some of these guys have gotten into, and men and women, by the way. And LSU gymnast Olivia Dunn is about to make a lot of money off this.
TikTok's going to be her friend.
Yeah, it's great. We never ever have to sit there. You're on a college campus. Ooh, the star quarterback. How does he have that Range Rover? Now it's like, yeah, well, he just signed a sweet deal with Smoothie King. That's how. Whatever. Speaking of Smoothie King, Miles Brennan has signed with Smoothie King for LSU. So, there's just this is all going again. At some point, this is just going to become the norm, and it's just like Olympic athletes. Like, you just assume that they have money because they're really good at what they do, and people want to be a part of them. So we have a piece at The Athletic that runs down a lot of these that I just talked about. And here's the first comment on the story from John Kay. It is difficult not to think this is the end of college sports as anything other than professional minor leagues. Good for the athletes involved. If these colleges are seen as little more than AAA outposts for professional leagues, I think the sheen will wear off quickly. John, don't watch college sports anymore then. I'm going to continue to love college football and cheerleaders and bands and full stadiums and the NCAA tournament, and it's going to be awesome, and it's not going to be different. I'm sorry. Like at some point you get pissed off with the same old complaints like this is the minor leagues. It's the minor leagues if they're paid employees of the schools. And that will completely change the system and it won't be the same. This is how the system stays the same for the things that we love about it.
I agree. And I thought yesterday was really cool to watch. And a couple of big money deals already. De'Aaron King of Miami inks a deal with the College Hunks Hauling Junk. That's a moving company.
Really? I like that one. College Hunks Hauling Junk.
Yeah. De'Aaron King and
name for a business.
Bubba Bolden, $20,000 each.
Wow.
$20K.
Well, and I think De'Aaron King is also involved. Like, he got into a company that's actually going to be involved in getting people things, right? He and Mackenzie Milton.
Yeah.
Well, that's Dreamfield. So there you go. Yeah. Oh, here you go. Yes, College Hunks Hall. That's so great. No, there's some kids here who obviously have an entrepreneurial spirit and have been ready for this and pouncing on it. Which is, again, like and Grant Firking for Tennessee is another great example, and we talked to David Oden about it yesterday. He's been already an entrepreneur, before a lot of things, when you had to be careful. Now he can just open it up and get involved in this. I love it, man. I think it's great. I really do. And, of course, the whole recruiting inducement aspect of it is going to be interesting. I'm all for that too. I understand that some people are going to try to stop that, and that'll be interesting. That's a big question moving forward. Another question that has been answered that we got asked a lot on the show yesterday was the apparel question. And no big surprise here, but if you've seen, a lot of these schools have put out their own policies, and I saw a lot of them yesterday after the show that had certain disclaimers, including, the apparel will be the school's apparel deal, which makes sense. The school's like,
sure,
we're getting millions from Nike. You're not wearing Adidas. So, that's something to keep in mind. And it really, what it does is it probably just reinforces, quote unquote, Nike kids are going to go to Nike schools, and quote unquote, Adidas kids are going to go to Adidas schools. But schools are safeguarding themselves there. And look, I don't begrudge that. It's part of the deal. Those apparel deals are big for schools. They're big for coaches too, by the way. If you look at a coach's contract, a lot of times a big chunk of that contract is the Nike deal.
Yep.
So that's an answer there. Not a especially surprising one.
No, and I'm glad that we got some clarity on that one, because that was a big point of emphasis yesterday on the text line of what's going to happen with these apparel companies. Because look, especially in basketball, it makes sense. they're going after these kids. Like they want to sign these kids to some shoe contracts. Now, what you have just come out and said, it was going to happen anyway, but that's just confirmation that, I mean, you're going to get into bidding wars with these schools sometimes. If you're a Nike school and the Nike company wants that athlete, they're going to pony up before that kid commits, and Adidas is going to pony up, Under Armour is going to pony up, and then it becomes a bidding war at that point.
But again,
which I'm cool with.
It's already happened.
Yeah.
It already happens. I mean, Marvin Bagley's dad's AAU team had pretty good Nike funding before he went to the Nike school called Duke.
They did.
Like a lot. I mean, this is – so that's not new. I still do think there will probably be some situations that come up, where there's a conflict there. And some of these schools put in, like, without express written consent or something like that. So I could see that being challenged here or there. Like Zion, early in Zion's freshman season is Adidas like, I don't care, man. You got to get that guy. We have got to get that guy. I don't care. Get in there.
Yeah.
And like Zion sits out the rest of the season so he can be with Adidas. Who knows? I don't think that would have been the outcome. But I could see that coming up with some of the very, very top athletes who are being pursued by various companies.
Elijah, what did you think of day one of name, image, and likeness in the world of college sports? What was your favorite that you saw?
Man, the Trey Knox one was really good, but the Michigan State player, I don't know if he's a punter
Matt
or
Coughlin,
a kicker.
He's Matt Coughlin, kicker. Yeah,
That was amazing.
Kicker. Oh,
Yes.
The endorsement of the Locked On Spartans podcast where he says, I haven't listened to it, but I'm sure it's not bad or doesn't suck or something like that.
That's amazing.
Like, that's really good. And I'm curious as to how much they paid for him to say that, because that would be funny.
I'm willing to bet, though, a lot of people listen to the Locked On Spartans podcast yesterday.
Absolutely.
Well, so
absolutely.
So yeah, my buddy, so Matt Sheehan, who was a former state newser, who was a student writer when I was covering Michigan State, runs that podcast, and so he put up, I think he put up a tweet the night before, who's gonna get the first like $100 or whatever to promote our podcast. So I think it was like $100. I'm gonna try to find that tweet. I think that's what he said. I saw his tweet the night before. And it was like, who's the first athlete who's going to promote our podcast for like $100? And so Matt Coughlin jumped on. That's pretty sweet. You can kind of make fun of it and still get $100 for it. Good for you. Should we get some Belmont, Vanderbilt kids here? Can we
maybe so?
Can we round up some scratch?
Yeah, for sure.
Make sure you listen to Robby and Rexrode. I'm sure it doesn't totally suck.
Some TSU kids? Yeah, I mean, come on.
Hey, I'd take that endorsement. Maybe we should do that. Mason on YouTube says, I can't wait for the NCAA football video game to come back. Wasn't it stopped because of the name, image, and likeness issues?
Oh, yeah. Well,
the answer is yes.
That's coming back.
And EA Sports came out with a statement, I believe yesterday, on this, saying, quote, we are watching the recent developments regarding student-athlete name, image, and likeness very closely. It's still very early in the stages at this point, and we plan to explore the possibility of including players in EA Sports College Football. For now, our development team is focused on working with our partners at CLC to ensure the game authentically showcases the great sport of college football and the more than 100 institutions signed on to be featured in our game. So it's happening.
It is, but I tell you what, and by the way, I was wrong. Sheehan did not put out a number, so who knows? I hope he paid Coughlin $10K for that. Hopefully you've got that kind of money, Sheehan.
No pressure.
But, the thing is, if you're EA now, I mean, you need some price control. You're going to pay right? We know how that game used to be. They've got scouting reports on a lot of players.
Oh, yeah.
And tendencies that reflect a lot, which is, again, it's just hilarious to think about what the world used to be like. Like, how could it have gotten there? But people loved it. So are people going to love it so much that it's worth paying X amount to all these college football players? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I hope so. That'd be great to see it come back and see their names. This does remind me, anybody who's old enough to remember Tecmo Bowl, they struck deals with the NFL, but some of the guys in the league didn't do it. So Randall Cunningham didn't do it. He was QB Eagles. Although it was totally Randall Cunningham too, which is interesting. So I don't know how that all worked. Jim Kelly didn't do it. It was QB Bills, but everybody else had their names on there.
Yeah.
This will be an interesting negotiation because that's a lot of money you have to pay to have all these characteristics for your game that make it real that you didn't have to pay a single dime before. Is it worth it?
It's interesting.
Do people love?
It's like, and that's one thing for the college, but this happens with pro games as well, like NBA 2K. Charles Barkley's not in it. He's never been in it because they won't pay him what he wants to be paid. Like, you could have all these throwbacks, like you can play with Michael Jordan if you want to on NBA 2K. You cannot play. You can't find Charles Barkley because they can't use his name, image, or likeness.
And
That's
there's
too bad.
Yeah,
They're
there's some teams.
rebound.
There's some teams that are like those retro teams where there's only like 6 available players, and the rest are like computer generated dudes named John Williams that wear number 99.
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
Yeah. That's so they paid Jordan enough. So Barkley probably wanted Jordan money for it. That's probably what happened, right?
Probably so.
They wouldn't pay him Jordan money.
I guess not.
If you would have
Jordan probably doesn't care. He's like, yeah, whatever.
If you would have finished,
I got enough money.
Yeah. Well, Jordan's like, okay, sure, I'll take another whatever.
Yeah.
Barkley, all you had to do was finish that series in '93.
It
would all be different, Charles.
We'll continue the conversation on name, image, and likeness when we come back, including how big a deal could this be for women's sports as well on the college realm. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen tomorrow night as Nashville SC takes on Philadelphia at Nissan Stadium. Pregame starts at 6:45 and the match begins at 7 o'clock. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. We're also back on the air, so thanks for hanging with us. We were working through some technical difficulties, but I think we've got it figured out now.
Thank you to all of you who reached out.
Yes.
And told us but did not scream at us.
There we go. We appreciate your patience. So
your kindness. Jared, you could learn something from them.
A lot of kindness this morning here on the show. Talking right now about name, image, and likeness in the world of college athletics. And Joe, I'm interested to see, because I think we're always kind of brainstorming and wondering about ideas that could help grow women's sports. And there are a lot of women's sports that are very successful. Obviously, women's college basketball is a big deal, especially here in this state with the Powerhouse program out east in Tennessee. They're trying to get back to that elite level in the world of women's college basketball. I don't know if y'all watched the women's softball tournament, but it was pretty awesome, and the ratings were pretty great as well. So lots of great sporting events out there in the women's game. My question for you, Joe, is how does name, image, and likeness change the women's games in college athletics? How big of a deal could this be for women's athletes who, as we know, and this has been a big talking point with the WNBA as well. I think you can make a pretty good argument. A lot of these players are more popular in college than they are in the WNBA. How big a deal is name, image, and likeness for players like that who are stars in college and can probably make a pretty good amount of money based on what we've seen through the first day of this so far?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's for a long time. This has been really important to me. I think women's athletics is finally getting the respect it deserves, and we're finally seeing that if you invest in something and cover it and things like that, there's actually a huge audience for it. In fact, I think the Softball World Series outperformed the Baseball World Series pretty significantly in the ratings, just as one example. The women's basketball tournament, obviously there was all the stuff this year about the unequal conditions, men's, women's, stuff like that. It's got to end, and we're to a point now where I think beyond, obviously for a long time, gymnasts, Olympic sports, in the Olympics every 4 years you have figure skaters and things like that who have been very popular, but women's team sports are finally getting more traction, which is great to see. Now, of course, I'm in a state where, I would say Pat Summitt's program is the greatest program that will ever be in this state. It will ever be.
It's pretty good.
So people here are familiar with that. But overall, at large, it's made a lot of progress. Still more to go. But this is really interesting with name, image, likeness. And I'll be honest. Initially, I thought more in terms of, okay, it's going to be like football stars, men's basketball stars, and here and there, some women's basketball stars too. But there's a lot of different angles to that. And just the social media following, that's the thing that I just didn't really – I still don't totally understand it. I'm just reading things that tell me they'd make this much money. I'm saying, wow, okay, good for them. But Olivia Dunn, we mentioned her, the LSU gymnast, she's about to make a ton. But it's also, apart from women's athletes, it's really interesting. Like Pat Forty had a good piece on this, SA.com, about some of the athletes who are going to do really well just because of their presence. For example, Adrian Nunez, who doesn't really play for Michigan basketball, but apparently he just has this really huge following because of his personality and stuff he does on social media.
Yep.
Minnesota wrestler Gable Stevenson has 245,000 Instagram followers. I don't know why, but people do that. They cultivate that, and now they can cash in on it. And you have the twins, the women's basketball twins who play for Fresno State,
yep,
who Haley and Hannah Cavender, who also are about to just cash in huge. And not necessarily because they're great on the basketball court, but because they, that has given them a platform, sort of a public figure situation, and then they've cultivated this following. So a lot of that is going to play out here, and I think you're going to see the great women's golfer like Lorena Ochoa a few years ago at who's now on the tour, but she was a dominant college golfer. Okay. Right now, if she was in college right now, she'd have like a ping deal, and just like any player on tour, she'd probably make a couple $100K from wearing that stuff. And these are things that, again, there's a benefit beyond just like the superstar football, men's basketball people.
Well, and you brought up Olivia Dunn. I mean, she's got over 1 million followers on Instagram and over 1 million followers on TikTok. So, I mean, that's 2 different platforms right there with over 1 million followers. She's going to make more than $1 million out of this. Like, she's going to make an unbelievable amount of money on this. It's just one of those things where, and look, I realize that example is extreme. I think she's the most followed college athlete, period.
Yeah, and look, and I mean, she's not a great gymnast. She's a celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, she's an Instagram celebrity. But again, like, that should never. All this is just it's just college students who are now just being treated like all the other college students.
Right.
I mean, let's contrast this with when we talk about deregulating. Joanne P. McCauley, okay, she used to coach Michigan State women's basketball. She went to a golf club, okay, in the summer. She said hello to a 16-year-old who she knew through the family. She had to report herself as an NCAA violation because it was not during a recruiting period, even though this 16-year-old girl did not play basketball, was not a recruit, but she was a 16-year-old. Yeah. And so she had to report herself and submit. And this is like I wrote this story because I used open records to get all their violations. And you go through the violations, like, oh, my God, you had to report that? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, things like that can just be done away with. And now college athletes can be treated like college athletes, like adults who live in the United States of America.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how this works. Like, I think back to Candace Parker. Like, Candace Parker at Tennessee. And I realize that she's gone to the WNBA and she's been on TNT and she's doing well for herself. So Candace Parker's fine. But you can't convince me that Candace Parker's peak of her popularity in her playing career wasn't while she was at the University of Tennessee. She'd have made a ton of money at the University of Tennessee. Like, it's interesting to think about it. Look, we saw a bunch of news yesterday with Reggie Bush trying to get back and reinstated in the Heisman part of this. And you're going to see a lot of former athletes talking about this. Johnny Manziel was vocal on Twitter as well. But, like, as far as the women's game is concerned, it does make me think of, Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, Tamika Catchings, all these different players that, had this been in effect during their heyday in college, they'd have made a lot of money.
So if you're a Tennessee fan, and it could be the next star, but if you're a Tennessee fan, put yourself back at that time, and you knew that Candace Parker was starring for Pat Summitt's team, and you were winning national championships, and she was also pulling about $500K off various endorsements. Does that take away your enjoyment of Lady Vols basketball, Tennessee, Candace Parker?
Probably not.
I need people to explain to me why this bothers you.
Well, I think the answer is simple. I think there's a misunderstanding a lot of what's going on here. Like, I think they're just afraid that this is going to become, free agency in college sports, which it already basically is. And it's also, the idea of schools paying the players, which is not happening. Schools are not paying the players. The operation on the teams themselves, in the leagues themselves, it's not really going to change all that much. You're going to be able to make a little bit of money on the side.
Right.
Like a normal college student.
I mean, the enjoyment of the game aspect of it, that
should be the same.
But that's separate from this, and that probably like one and done is something. Now, some people, embrace that. I mean, Kentucky fans have kind of had to say, hey, we get a brand new team every year, so, okay. If it's a great team, fine, right?
Sure.
But, I mean, again, if you're of a certain age, you remember, when Patrick Ewing played 4 years in college basketball. I mean, you remember when Jordan's like, okay, I guess I'll go after my junior year to the NBA. You used to have a lot more continuity, a lot less transferring, a lot more. You could watch players grow at your favorite school. That's very different, and I get that from a fan experience perspective, that's not as good, but that's separate from the making money thing.
When we come back, we will switch gears. We'll be joined by Dan Rosen from NHL.com. We'll get into the trade of Victor Arvidsson with him, also the Stanley Cup final as well. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are pleased to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Dan Rosen from NHL.com. Dan, what's going on? I saw you on TV the other day. You're looking sharp. What's happening, brother?
How are you guys? Everything's good? Yeah, no, I know you saw me. You sent me a picture of it. You know, it's just that dynamic presence. That's what I wrote back to you.
Really is.
On TV.
Really?
I'm just kidding. No, and everything's good. You know, we got Game 3, 2-0 Tampa Bay. Not surprised by it at all. And here we go. A couple more games left in this season.
Here we go. A couple more left in this Stanley Cup final. We'll get to the final a little bit more in detail coming up here in just a few minutes. Dan, I do want to get your thoughts initially to the trade of Victor Arvidsson from the Predators to the LA Kings. The Predators get back a second-rounder this year, a third-rounder next year. Just your reaction to that trade. What did you think of the trade from the Predators' point of view?
Well, I'll tell you what. You know, you look at where Nashville – I kind of agree with where David Poile was going with this. You look at where Nashville was, say, 3, 4, 5 years ago. You look at where they are now. 3, 4, 5 years ago, they were a Stanley Cup contender, and now they're a playoff contender. And there's a big difference, right? You know, in one case, you can go out and really believe when you go into the playoffs that you got a shot to win the Stanley Cup. In the other case, you're just trying to get into the playoffs. And, yeah, if you get into the playoffs, look at Montreal. They're case in point, right? But you got to be clicking at that point, too. And I just look at the Predators and I say, where are they going? You know, with the core that they had, where is it going? And to me, it wasn't going very far. So Arvidsson, you know, you shave about $4.5 million or so off your cap. You get back a couple of picks, and now you can use that $4.5 million or so, whatever his cap is, was in that neighborhood, to re-energize the group with somebody different. You know, it's not like Victor Arvidsson's a bad player. By any stretch, he's not. He's an aggressive, energetic, goal-scoring type of player. But it's just a bit of a change. You know, a little, you know, bit of a 90-degree turn, say, and just say, all right, we got to go in a different direction here, and let's see if we can plug this, use this money that we have available now to find something different, and maybe that's the key for our team right now. So that's kind of my take on it from the Predators' perspective, because getting back draft picks, you're not getting back anybody that's going to help your team right now or probably in the next 2 or 3 years, but you're getting the cap space that allows you to just go in a different direction.
Of course, we've also speculated today, Dan, that, you know, more draft capital now. Maybe as you have discussions, you know, with the Kraken, with the expansion draft coming up, you could swing something because, of course, I think the Preds, if they could unload a Ryan Johansson or a Matt Duchene, I think they would be interested in that. Do you think that there would be interest on the other end of that?
Well, I don't know why there wouldn't be. I mean, both of those are good players, you know. That's the thing, and that's my point with where Nashville is right now with the core that they've had, is it just wasn't connecting. That's not to say that Ryan Johansson's not a good player and Matt Duchene's not a good player on their own. They are very good players. And I think there could be and probably should be interest on, you know, on especially the Kraken side, but in a lot of teams' perspectives, you know, on those types of players. So I do think so. I think it's another thing you're looking at there. But I don't look at David Poile and say to myself, he's going into a rebuild here and just trying to get draft picks and all that stuff. I think he wants to use the capital that he's gaining and the cap that he's gaining to retool this thing to so it spins forward pretty quickly.
Dan, obviously a lot of interest here locally in Nashville to this Stanley Cup final with Shea Weber being involved with the Montreal Canadiens. But as you said, Tampa Bay up 2-0. They just look like an absolute machine that they've looked like for the last 2-3 years. What have you made of this series so far, and is there any way, in your opinion, Montreal can climb back in this thing now with Game 3 coming up at home?
Look, I think Montreal can win Game 3. If they play the way they did in Game 2, they can win Game 3. And they, you know, it's a home game for them. I know there's only 3,500 in the stands, but, you know, it's a home game. It's different. They got the last change. They can get the Philip Danault line out against Braden Point's line. There's a lot of different things they can do. But can they beat Tampa Bay 4 out of 5? I mean, I don't see that.
It's tough.
Tampa Bay hasn't lost back-to-back in the playoffs in 2 years. Like, I just don't see how Montreal can beat them. That's why they absolutely needed a split. And they played a really strong game. Was that their best game, Montreal? It might be. You know, their game that they played in Game 2 was really good. They made 2 or 3 mistakes, and they ended up in the back of their net. And that was it. You know, I mean, that was the case right there. They outplayed the Lightning in that game, and they couldn't come away with a win. That's got to be demoralizing. That goal by Blake Coleman is a devastating goal for the Montreal Canadiens. It's just a crushing goal. It was a great goal for the Lightning.
How many times is he going to do that, by the way? Is he just going to start diving all the time, scoring goals from every different angle?
I love how he said after the game, like, you never really want to dive on the ice. Yeah, you do if your stick's out and you're poking the puck in the net. That's fine, you know. But no, you know what? I mean, that ended the worst period I'd seen Tampa Bay play in a very long time, and I've covered them throughout the entire playoffs, and they still end up 2-1. To me, that just says a lot about where this team is and the way they're going right now. And I don't see Montreal winning 4 out of 5 in this year. I just can't see it. Tampa Bay, what they do, everything that Tampa Bay does, let me say this, all the advantages that Montreal had in the first 3 rounds, Tampa Bay is better at.
So, Dan, if this goes as expected here and ends up as – and I guess what we can all expect, Vasilevsky's going to get a shutout, right, in the decisive game. But,
apparently that's the trend.
That's what he does.
That's the way it goes, yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, where's the discussion around this team in terms of, relative to some of the other great teams we've seen, in modern history in the NHL?
Well, the discussion to me is ongoing because – the core is still in place. Nobody's going anywhere. They have a cap situation that they're going to have to deal with in the offseason because obviously we know about how Kucherov was on LTIR all year. So there is something that's going – it's not going to be the same group returning, but the core is not going anywhere. Kucherov, Stamkos, Hedman, Vasilevsky, McDonough, Points. These guys, Killorn it's ongoing. And kind of the way I felt about the Pittsburgh Penguins after they won their back-to-back, right? It was an ongoing discussion because they had a lot of the same pieces. And now, we're talking now 4 years later from that, and it's not the same, obviously, for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They still have Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, but everything else around them is pretty much different except for maybe a few other pieces. So we'll see where it goes, but back-to-back, you're in the discussion now of a dynasty. And let's see where it goes from here. But it's an ongoing discussion. We'll see with Tampa Bay. If they end up winning this, can they win 3 in a row? We'll see what roster they return, but wouldn't they be a favorite if you look at them on paper right now?
You would think so. Absolutely. Dan Rosen from NHL.com on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And, Dan, we had somebody throw this question out to us the other day, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Shea Weber, obviously he's going to be 36 in August, so – he's been in the league a long time, 16 years. Obviously been a great player both in Nashville and Montreal as well. This is his first trip to the Stanley Cup Final. He has not won a Norris Trophy, but a lot of the numbers are there. Is Shea Weber a Hall of Famer in your mind?
Shea Weber is probably a Hall of Famer, but he's not I don't think he gets in on the first year. He may not get in on the second year either. He's been a terrific defenseman in the National Hockey League. Big, strong, so well respected in the NHL. But if you look at the guys who are, in the Hall of Fame, a lot of them have either A, won the cup, or A and B, won an award, and won the, especially the Norris. And, he's kind of been, he just hasn't had that he just hasn't done it, and there's always been somebody a little bit better than him each season to win the Norris Trophy. And that's not to say in one of these seasons he couldn't have done it, but he just didn't. So I think eventually, out of the respect that he has around the league and from people all over, eventually he gets in, especially also with his international stuff. He's a 2-time gold medal winner on the Olympic stage. Probably gets in, but I wouldn't expect it on the first round of voting for him, and maybe not on the second round of voting either.
Dan, at the risk of sounding like quite a homer here, how the heck did the GMs have UC Saros 6 for the Vezina?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't look at the voting total all the way through, but he was awesome. I mean, that's a great question. And that also might have to do a little bit with name recognition, right? Like, the team was fourth, kind of got in, but a little bit barely. He's not Pecorine in terms of name recognition. And I don't know. There's no real explanation for that for me. I mean, I thought he would be a finalist. If he wasn't a finalist, I thought he was fourth.
Dan Rosen from NHL.com has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check out his great coverage of the Stanley Cup Final at NHL.com. You can also catch him on the NHL Network as well. Dan, appreciate you time to join us this morning, brother.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dan Rosen from NHL.com, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. That's been the general reaction. A lot of perplexed looks about how UC Saros finishes sixth in the Vezina Trophy voting. Pretty much across the board. Makes you wonder what the NHL GMs are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any GM this summer who's going to lose sleep over being terrible at voting for that award, but they also probably wouldn't lose sleep if they didn't vote. So maybe that should happen for them.
Had someone on Periscope say Shea Weber is a first ballot Hall of Famer. What are you talking about?
Well, it is funny how just having the Norris on the resume would strengthen it. It would.
Well, and that goes
he's
back
been so close. I mean, he's right there many years.
Well, that goes back to something that if you've watched the Predators,
I know what you're going to bring up. I know what you're going to bring up.
Rub people the wrong way because he got absolutely gypped by Nick Lidstrom one year in the Career Achievement Award they gave Nick Lidstrom at the end of that year.
The perfect human. Come on,
perfect
what do you want,
human.
Man?
He's a great player. Shea Weber should have won the Norris that year. You can make an argument he got gypped another year as well. But he's been right there. You're right. He's never won the Norris. At this point, he's not going to win the Norris. He's going to be 36. So, unless he just out of nowhere has another dominant season offensively, you know what he is defensively. He's always going to be good. He's physical. He's a great player. He's still a really, really good player. But, look, I think Shea Weber's a Hall of Famer, but I agree with Dan. I don't think it's going to be, right off the bat or anything like that.
How about another gold medal? It'd be nice to see him have that opportunity.
I wonder if he'd make the team now.
Maybe not.
I
mean, they've got some. They've got guys.
At that time, he'd be 37. I don't know.
He'd probably make it, right?
I don't know. They got some guys on defense.
Some guys. Yeah, they got guys.
We'll see. See what happens on that front. We'll continue the discussion on the Predators when we come back, including some interesting reactions yesterday for some players on the roster to the trade of Victor Arvidsson. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Join 102.5 The Game tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. for the Nashville SC pre-match party at the Hard Rock Cafe downtown. Party before the match on Broadway and get some game swag, plus register to win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Then head on over to Nissan Stadium for the 7 o'clock match. Get your tickets now for Nashville SC at NashvilleSC.com and tune into the match on ESPN 94.9. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Thanks to Dan Rosen for joining us in the last segment. Part of what we talked about was the Stanley Cup Final. The other part, the trade that sends Victor Arvidsson to the Los Angeles Kings. The Predators receive a second-round pick this year, a third-round pick next year in return for Victor Arvidsson. We've talked about our reaction to the trade. Not much surprise there. You and I both said this offseason that would not be surprised if Victor Arvidsson got traded, and now he's been traded. There was quite a bit of surprise yesterday, I think, from some players on the Predators roster. Philip Forsberg, the most notable reaction, tweeting just an emoji of thumbs down on his Instagram story, posting that out there. Matt Duchene posting about Arvidsson as well. Ryan Johansson as well. And look, I don't read too much into this because, look, Arvidsson's a very popular guy in the locker room. He has been there for a long time. He's been with Forsberg since the beginning. He's been with Ryan Johansson since he's come in here. So you get it. When you trade away a player like that, it hurts. It hurts to see a friend go. It hurts to see somebody that you've gotten to know very well. I mean, look, Matt Duchene was posting pictures of Arvidsson and Yarncroke and their families and himself on a beach vacation in Florida together. So obviously they are very close. I understand it from that side of it. But I said this earlier in the show. I think if you're a player and you're a part of this core and this is taking you by surprise or you're shocked that somebody like Arvidsson has been moved, I don't really know what you've been paying attention to the last few weeks. Like, I don't know how you could have watched what happened the last 3 years and not being able to get out of the first round and just think that year after year you're going to continually trot this core back out. Like, at some point that was going to change, and now it's changed with Victor Arvidsson going.
But here's what one of those players might say back to you. Yes, but is this not a trajectory bump the other way, going 27-1, playing as well as we did, a couple plays away from beating Carolina? Does that not mean?
No.
Yeah, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that's what they would say back. You know, I mean, obviously these guys, when you have a locker room, guys who like each other, which is not always easy to put together, you know, they want to stay together. They were much more vocal about it after the loss to Winnipeg in 18. But I agree with you that, like, at this point, you have to be prepared for this. You have to know that something like this is very possible. And also, I mean, you're a pro athlete in any league. You've seen enough stuff where people get moved. If you're not a straight-up contender/buyer, I mean, you have to be prepared for some of this stuff. But I wonder, with Forsberg's thumbs down, I mean, he's a guy they want to extend. You know, I think the thing for these guys probably is, it's like the question some fans asked yesterday. Okay, what does this mean? On its face, I don't think it necessarily means. We don't think that this means that, like, Poyle is throwing up the white flag and let's spend 3 years trying to rebuild, right? But if you're a player, you're like, you just took away one of our best players for draft picks. You don't like that as a player.
No.
If you want to win right now, right? So.
Well,
I don't think it's a big deal, but I do with Forsberg in particular. There's a guy that you want to be part of this organization. Presumably, you want to be part of this organization for another contract.
Well, look, I can tell you, and I don't think this is any surprise based on some of the reaction we saw yesterday on social media, but I can tell you with some conversations I had yesterday, they're not happy about this. Like, there are players that are not happy about this. Now, at the end of the day, is it the world's biggest deal? No. I mean, players get traded a lot. I'm sure there were players that weren't happy about Shea Weber getting traded either. Now, the difference in a trade like that is you're also getting a dynamic player coming back the other way. So I think as a player, you probably understand that part of it a little bit more. This one's a little bit tougher to take because, as Dan mentioned in the last segment, I mean, unless you just really hit on one of these draft picks, they're not going to help you for 3 years probably at minimum. So a lot of these guys may not even be here by the time this second-round pick or third-round pick enters into the fold here in Nashville. So that's a little bit tougher to take from a player's standpoint. But again, play better. Like that's the bottom line. Like if you want to avoid situations like this, stop getting put out in the first round when this core is signed up and was the way this contracts were structured with this group is to be a competitor for years, and they're not right now. I think Dan put it best in the last segment. 3 years ago, they were a Stanley Cup contender. Right now, they're contending for the playoffs. That's a huge difference, and that's where this team is right now.
And you also have to understand that with Arvidsson, not just play better, but also understand. It may not be fair, and it may. I mean, the Bortuzzo hit got heavy rotation again. I forgot. That is just an enraging. Did anyone like go after him? Remind me.
No,
because that second hit when he was trying to just get up in the net, that's disgusting, man.
It was a dirty play.
That was awful. But again, like it's not fair. But understand that. I mean, that moment since then, it's not been the same. It's hard to look at things and think that's not a factor. It's hard to look at Arvidsson's performance the last couple of years and not think that he's lost something, probably because of injuries.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting part of this is, and I go back to the comments that David Poile made yesterday on with Darren Donick and Chase. Like it sounded like from what David Poile was saying that Arvidsson and he had at least had a conversation about this. Like he talked about a fresh start maybe being needed from both sides. I got away from that conversation thinking that Arvidsson, maybe he didn't request a trade, but he was okay with you exploring that option. So if that's the case, and there was a little frustration there from Victor Arvidsson, which, I mean, I guess I can see why that could have been the case. Was that not ever expressed to your teammates as well? Because there seemed to be genuine shock yesterday from some of these guys that he was traded. Like Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson talked about, man, this has turned into a really tough day very quickly. Like, I know you don't talk about everything with these guys, and part of this is just your business, and you've got to worry about your future and your career. But those two things to me are kind of interesting to think about, where I took away from the conversation with Poile yesterday that this was not a huge surprise to Victor Arvidsson, and it seemed to be a pretty big surprise to his teammates.
Could that be a little Poile spin on that?
Could be.
Because Arvidsson requesting a trade or coming close to that does not match up with the reaction, the big thumbs down, right?
Right.
I mean, the reaction to this from a Forsberg, if that's the case, is love you, man, gonna miss you, go do great things in L.A. Thumbs down is like, what the heck are you doing? So that doesn't all add up together to me.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, I'd much rather have seen someone like Ellis get moved. We are defensively rich and offensively poor, and Ellis hasn't looked the same since the Corey Perry hit. Look, well, first off, that doesn't mean they're done with that trade yesterday. I mean, there's still, I think, some moves that could be coming this offseason, but I don't know that Ryan Ellis is going to be one of those. I get it. Victor Arvidsson, you look around this group right now, and this is very similar to what we thought last year heading into the season. You looked around and you said, all right, where exactly is the offense going to come from this group? And Arvidsson, while he's not been anywhere close to the player that he was 2 years ago, he still is a guy that can put the puck in the back of the net. Now I look at this team right now with not knowing what's going to happen in the expansion draft and some moves in free agency, maybe some moves via trades. Again, right now this team offensively, they need some work. And you're relying on younger guys to come in and fill that void. It's great if it works, but we've seen with younger guys that can be much easier said than done.
Yeah. I think there's more to come, okay? But this was by far, I think, the easiest and the most sensible thing to do. One thing you brought up there, Robby, on draft picks, it made me think, when is the last time David Poile traded a player for only draft picks?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
I mean, I think it's probably going way back, right?
I would think. I mean, notable player.
Yeah, because I mean that's
because I'm sure I'm sure I can't remember what Matt Irwin got traded for, but it was probably like a 7th round pick.
Yeah, I'm talking more like
notable player.
I'm talking about a notable player that actually changes your lineup, and all you got back was futures. I mean that is look, it's a lot easier for players in a locker room. Hey, I'm sure everybody was like, man, Sam Girard's going to be really good, right? But okay, you're bringing in Kyle Turris, be your number 2 center. What a huge deal. I mean, whenever you're bringing someone back who's going to help you right now, that's a lot easier for players to take. When they see something like this, then they naturally have that question. Where is this going?
Frank on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, so if the Arvidsson move helps to sign Granlund, is Duchesne okay with that, or does he just want guys that he vacations with? There's a lot of hostility directed toward Matt Duchesne right now.
Dang. I don't know. I think Matt Duchesne, based on the last things that he said publicly, is just really hoping he gets another chance to play here for the Preds and produce something close to his contract.
But to that point, you now freed up $4.25 million per year for the next 3 years with Arvidsson's contract being off the books. I would have to think part of what's in mind there is, hey, we're going to try to re-sign Mikhail Granlund. It's not going to come before the expansion draft because that makes no sense. But right after the expansion draft into free agency, I would assume the Predators are going to take a pretty good run at Mikhail Granlund at this point.
I don't see how that doesn't happen based on how good he was, how important he was in every aspect of hockey, and how John Hines seems to just love him.
Yeah.
With this coach, I don't think there's any question. And again, that's the last thing, very important thing that justifies not selling him off at the deadline. To me, if you don't re-sign him, then I think you go back to that moment and say, man, you should have done it then.
Adam Vingan, our friend from The Athletic, texting in, Austin Watson traded for a 4th-round pick. Did you put him in the same category?
I don't think at that
Colin
point
Wilson?
I would. At that point, I wouldn't. What was Colin Wilson?
I can't remember.
But that's
I would look that up.
I would be more based on Watson at that point. He'd been healthy scratched a lot the year before. Right? He'd kind of fallen out.
Yeah.
Colin Wilson, okay. That might count. Playoff Colin Wilson.
Tyler on the text line says Matt Irwin was traded for the legend Corbinian Holzer. Aberg traded for just picks. How could we forget Holzer coming in? Good call.
Great name. What's the who's the kid who's going to be all-name team of all time coming in?
Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine?
Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine. My gosh.
I'm just counting down the days until Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine is here with the Predators.
If Poiled moves him, then
right.
That's it. Yeah. There should be absolute mutiny in the building.
Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine, get those jerseys ready. Hopefully he makes the NHL one day, because if he does, you talk about name, image, and likeness.
Paul McCann's going to have a field day.
Yeah, oh, God. The first time Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine ever scores a goal, it's going to be amazing. Hope I'm there for it.
Man, that would be fun.
When we come back, we will get back into the name, image, likeness stuff. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Predators, on college sports as well, all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. When we come back, 10 college athletes from back in the day that we wish we could have seen a little name, image, and likeness payment be thrown their way. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to have Call Your Shot Friday coming up a little bit later this hour at 8:45, not 7:45 this week. Had to move some scheduling stuff around. So Call Your Shot Friday coming up at 8:45 this week. So make sure you get those called shots in on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025.
A couple things I want to, before we get into this, on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com about name, image, likeness. One is, I don't have a name. Sorry. Great question, though. The idea of, past transgressions now not counting, like Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back.
Yep.
Chris Webber tweeted, the Fab Five. I mean, they still, like, the banners have been taken down, all that stuff, right? I mean, $600,000 from a numbers runner. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And someone brought up great on the text line. So are they going to financially compensate SMU for their death penalty? I mean, it is an interesting point. I mean, to me, it's more that – I mean, I guess I'm fine with Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But to me, it's more like you can look back at those things differently, but it doesn't mean that you go back and, those were the rules at the time.
Yeah,
right?
If you start going down that route, where does it stop? There's all sorts of NCAA rules violations that have happened that you can look back on now and say, well, that's pretty stupid. And I get it. It's dumb. But, are you just going to go undo everything that's happened the last 50 years with the NCAA?
I will say, well, right. I mean, I think we just look at it differently. I mean, I think that's
sure.
Right. Like Jim Tressel, who I think a lot of Jim Tressel. It's pretty amazing when you think about dudes trading, autographs for tattoos is basically why he got bounced at Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that it looks ridiculous now, but I don't know that you actively go back and undo a bunch of stuff. And then another question of what do compliance departments do? Will they do away with those? I will say they will not. In fact, if the NCAA has its way, there's going to be plenty for them to do. Now, to me, you should deregulate fully, open it fully, and I guess there's still compliance issues that need to be. There's other aspects of compliance other than these financial deals, right? But I will say that compliance departments can probably be cut down a little bit if it goes the way it should go.
Joey Watts on YouTube. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Joey. Appreciate you joining us here on your birthday.
Happy birthday, Joey.
Appreciate you watching and viewing us on YouTube this morning. Keith on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, talking about Gunnar Wolf Fontaine. Keith is very good at these nicknames for you. Gunnar Rod, Rex Wolf, Joe Tane. Gunnar Rod, Rex Wolf, Joe Tane, which has now been filed away for future reference.
Yeah, please keep that. Write it down because I'll never remember that. That's a lot. It's very complicated, but I like it.
Somebody on the text line says, can older basketball players get points added to their career totals if they shot beyond three-point range before the three-pointer was added? I see your point there.
Pete Maravich would average 60 a game.
Yeah, Pete Maravich be in pretty good shape.
Scotty Skiles averaged 27 a game as a senior, basically taking 20-footers. Yeah. So, no, they can't. No, exactly. Now, and specifically with Reggie Bush, I'm fine with him getting a Heisman.
Look, he took impermissible benefits, and I get it. It was against the rules at the time. But everybody knows Reggie Bush was the Heisman winner that year.
Well, and it's one of those things I've seen.
Was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some arguments to the effect of, he did something and other players didn't. So, he should still be punished. But again, no. If you don't get caught for speeding, it doesn't mean you didn't speed. Right? You're going to tell me he was the one guy doing, that's
sure.
But I have no problem with him getting the Heisman back. But yeah, I guess if we're going to sit here and I don't know, is Will Wade now do we can't speak of Will Wade ill again? Is that right?
I guess not.
I mean, the FBI, whatever. Wiretaps.
Just keeps going. So with that in mind, it was
job.
a crazy day yesterday with name, image, and likeness laws coming into effect. We saw endorsements from PetSmart, from some tea brands, all over the place. Video game companies. It was wild yesterday with name, image, and likeness laws coming into effect. And that got our own Joe Rexrode thinking, what are 10 college athletes from days that have gone by that you would have liked to see have this available to them with name, image, and likeness laws? And we've all come up with athletes, Elijah, Joe, and myself. Who would like to begin? Would you like me to begin? Because I've taken a little bit more of a, I guess, local flavor to this.
Go for it.
We can start with. I'll start Chris Lofton from Tennessee. Chris
like it.
Lofton. Great player at Tennessee. Great shooter. I'm not even sure he ever even played in the NBA. Certainly was not a factor in the NBA. But you talk about a guy that was electric. Vols fans loved. Could have made a lot of money. Chris Lofton at Tennessee. And in that same regard, I'll go Shane Foster at Vanderbilt. Could have been great with name, image, likeness laws. The first two, when you brought this up yesterday that came to mind, weren't football players. It was Chris Lofton and Shane Foster.
Another great one. Absolutely.
I also had from Tennessee, Tamika Catchings on that list as well. We talked about Candace Parker earlier. Eric Ainge at quarterback did not make the NFL. Could have made a lot of money at Tennessee. The one college football player, though, that immediately came to mind, Tommy Frazier from Nebraska.
That's a great call.
Tommy Frazier from Nebraska. You're talking about a guy that never worked out in the NFL. He's one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time at Nebraska. And we talked yesterday
when they were just as dominant
as it could be. I mean, one of the great teams that we've ever seen. And we talked yesterday about that fan base at that time, especially. Tommy Frazier. I mean, you look, Tebow would have made a lot of money. Manziel would have made a lot of money. Manziel kind of did make a lot of money. Cam Newton. I mean, you could go up and down the list. Tommy Frazier, he would have been up there. He made a lot of money on that front.
No, he's a great call.
Monica Abbott from Volunteers softball. Could have made a lot of money on that front as well. Greg Oden from Ohio State. I know he got drafted number 1 overall. Things did not go well for Greg Oden in the NBA. Could have gone well in college.
Yeah, he would have been all set before even stepping foot in the NBA.
Ron Dane from Wisconsin, one of the great running backs of all time. Now, he did play in the NFL. But, go look at his numbers in college.
Oh, yeah.
You can make an argument he's the greatest college football running back of all time. I don't know if I subscribe to that argument, but you can make the argument.
Yeah.
And then my last one on the list, there's 2 more on the list, actually. Christian Laettner, and then I love Jonathan Heffney at Tennessee, cornerback.
Interesting.
Never made the NFL.
Could have made the NFL. I think his injury that he had at Tennessee really, really hurt him.
Exactly, and that goes back to he's a great player in college. Could have made a lot of money at Tennessee. So a little bit more of a local flavor that I took there. Look, I could have made 75 players on that list. I could have kept going. I capped it at like 11 or 12 there, but some interesting ones.
Those are great. And so one of mine, Johnny Manziel is one of mine for sure. Now, Johnny Manziel is also an interesting situation because, look, I mean, he flamed out in the NFL. We all know. And a lot of that, I mean, really, it was his doing. He had issues. And that is one thing about this is, what if he – now, for anybody who doesn't know Johnny Manziel's backstory, I mean, he's from a rich oil family, so there was money available. But still, this was his own money that he was trying to make, obviously, by selling autographs. Now, you could say this is an example of a cautionary tale where if a kid who can't handle all this stuff does get money, is that a problem?
Yeah.
So but he comes to mind just in terms of his earning potential at that time. When you're talking about a Heisman winner, he was the biggest star in college football for a couple of years. What would it have been? It would have been off the charts. I probably can't finish mine before we go to break.
No, we'll get to the rest of yours coming up on the other side. We do have a texter that said Marshall Henderson from Ole Miss would have made bank for his name, image, and likeness. That's a second day in a row. Marshall Henderson has come up here on the show.
One's already on mine. I can tell you that.
There you go.
Now, if you want to talk about someone repping a strip club, he would have, right? Oh yeah, man.
Or Land Shark. I mean, that was his thing for a while too.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll get to Joe Rexrode's list coming up next. Elijah Campbell's as well of 10 athletes they would have loved to see from back in the day have this name, image, and likeness law to take advantage of. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Go to theGameNashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. Deals happening now include a $50 Bad Axe Throwing Nashville gift card for only $25. Buy one, get one free for Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon, and a $20 Grain and Berry gift card for only $10. Get yours now while they last at theGameNashville.com. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe, it's interesting. We're talking right now about NIL commitments that have been made and laws that have been passed. PetSmart doing some advertising yesterday. All sorts of advertising going up and down the list for modern-day college athletes to use their name, image, and likeness. I've thrown out my list of 10 players from the past. I would have loved to have seen this happen. What is your list of 10 players from the past that you would have loved seeing to have been involved with name, image, and likeness at the college sports level?
My list is very Michigan State, Vanderbilt, Tennessee-centric. One, though, not, is Kajana Carter, a guy who, incredible college player, part of one of the best offenses really in college football history with Kerry Collins as his quarterback, Bobby Ingram at receiver. That Penn State team was incredible. And I think he was the number 1 overall pick. If not, he was number 2 or number 3 to the Bengals. Tears his ACL in his first preseason game against the Lions in '95. He also has a broken wrist, torn rotator cuff, a dislocated kneecap. Had a very limited NFL career. Was absolutely a superstar in college. So he came to – I mean, I think of in terms of people who got hurt and then their pro earning potential was limited, but then also other circumstances. So another guy like that, Kalen Lucas, Michigan State, Big Ten Player of the Year as a sophomore, gets them to the national championship game. As a junior in the NCAA tournament, tears his Achilles and really is never quite the same. I don't know if that doesn't happen. He was smaller. There was some limitations there, but he was a great player who was a superstar for that program. And it's funny. I mean, if you told me after the championship game lost to North Carolina, say this guy or this pudgy freshman who talks a lot of trash, who's gonna make like tens of millions in the NBA, it would not have been the pudgy freshman named Draymond Green. It would have been Kalen Lucas. Another guy, Sam McGuffey. For anybody who remembers Sam McGuffey, didn't end up being in college what he was, cracked up to be, but he was like one of the early YouTube sensations out of Texas, like flipping over guys on the football field. Went to Michigan, huge hype for him. Like he would have done really well before he played. There's an example of, and this is where like return on investment comes into play too. I mean, so many of these. If you think that it's just going to be million here, million there, I mean, you don't know, especially in football, how things are going to turn out. But he's the guy who comes to mind. Okay, you have to really go back to know what I'm talking about here. Stephen Holman, okay, running back for Michigan State, and the reason he comes to mind is, he ended up like getting in trouble. He was out of school. I don't think it went well for him after that. It felt a little bit like a great athlete discarded. And I know at some point it's like you got to take charge of your own life and stuff. But this is a guy who was an absolute special talent. He had injuries. Again, he had some trouble. Some of that's his own doing. But like when he was at Michigan State for a brief period of time in the early 90s, he was absolutely spectacular. His nickname was Batman. He had a skin condition, which I don't know if that was his nickname for himself or others gave it to him.
Yeah.
It's 30 years ago. But it's a guy who just came to mind as someone who college athletics should have benefited him, and it didn't at all. Deidre Charles, Tennessee. And the reason I think of her, great player, center on the Pat Summitt 89 and 91 title teams, was on the 92 Olympic team. The timing didn't work out for her, to play professionally, but I think would have had she been a little bit younger. And certainly was one of those early stars in the late 80s, for Pat Summitt. Heidi Gillingham of Vanderbilt, great player on the 93 Final Four team, 1,600 points. She could have done extremely well. And again, it's like the timing there. Sherry Sam was a freshman on her team at Vanderbilt. She played 17 seasons in the WNBA. But Heidi Gillingham kind of missed it. It didn't time out well for her. And so there's another one that comes to mind just in terms of timing. Jimmy King and Ray Jackson. These are the two, it's like the fifth Beatle. I mean, these are the number 4 and number 5 of the Fab Five. We know that Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, they all made huge NBA money. They all would have done great, all of them. And those guys would have done better. But just by association with the Fab Five, they would have killed. And they were really good, too, by the way. Covering Michigan at the 2013 Final Four in Atlanta, Jimmy was around. It obviously hasn't had the same success as those NBA guys. You think about what he could have been set up for life, for seed money for his life, had he been able to benefit back then. Sean Respert, best shooter I've ever seen in person, number 2 all-time scorer, Big Ten history. Would have been a star today, by the way, in the NBA, the way the game is played. I mean, unlimited range. Went number 8 overall in 95, was in the league a little bit, but he had stomach cancer that started his rookie year. He never told anybody until years later, but it basically ended his career. He went to Europe. I don't know how different his career would have been. I just know that you're talking about it's kind of very much a Chris Lofton kind of thing with him.
Yeah.
Just, a great personality, magnetic, and incredible shooter, scorer. Would have done great. And my last one is Juwan Jennings. I just think just a couple years ago, Juwan Jennings to me is a great example of the value of sharing your personality with the fans. And I know he's polarizing. Vanderbilt fans don't love Juwan Jennings, but Tennessee fans, to me, I think it's kind of like Tony Vitello with him, right? Like there's just a connection because of his intensity and he's just a dog, and people loved him. And this is also part of an interesting tweet Nicole Auerbach sent out yesterday about a couple things that should change. One is just this whole idea of like social media bans for college athletes. That's over, man. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Also, this stupid like freshmen can't talk or these guys can't talk. Let these people talk to people. Hey, if they want to be pros, this is what Izzo's always believed. Then you open the locker room and let them. This is how it is in the pros. The media gets to you and talks to you. I mean, Nick Saban tried to do a seniors-only policy in 1999 just so Plaxico Burress would not talk to us because he was saying stuff like he was mad at his quarterback.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's done. And Juwan Jennings is a great example of, there was some controversy, right? But ultimately, he was a beloved guy who had intensity, he wanted to win. He was for his teammates. He was a leader. And I think the more that these people can, these college athletes can share themselves, I think we see it with some of these who aren't great players, aren't great athletes necessarily, but are going to benefit because they have big social media presence. So I thought of him being in terms of how things have got to change. Now, you are not going to want to be the coach in college athletics who says, sorry, no interviews, no social media. Oh, well, I'm definitely not going to your program.
Nice. Well done.
All right.
It's a good list.
I took a long time.
It's all right. Let's go.
That was a good one. Yeah, the Fab Five ones are.
It's pretty good.
It's a good thought.
Let's go to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texture that says, my wife went to high school with Sam McGuffey in Houston, and McGuffey is now a member of the Olympic bobsled team.
That's right. He is.
There you go.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, he was in was he in Rio? I think he was in Rio. But, yeah, which is cool. That's a guy who was just an early one of those. There's a lot of that now, but an early like YouTube. Whoa, look at this. That alone, he would have showed up at college with some cash.
Xavier on the text line says Georgia fan here, but David Green, David Pollock, Todd Gurley would have made bank in Athens. Todd Gurley. He would have made bank in Athens. At least he's gone on to have a successful career.
Right.
David Green, David Pollock, two pretty good names on that list.
No doubt. There's again, like we said yesterday, if you're whatever program you're a fan of, you could probably come up with so many great players for your team.
Oh yeah.
Who, for whatever reason, it didn't pan out at the next level. They didn't make that big money. So wouldn't it be great for them to have a couple $100,000 to go into the next phase of life with? Who does that hurt?
Kathy on the text line. Not that he's had any problems making money professionally, but think about how much money Clowney could have made after that hit in the Michigan game. Probably could have made a lot of money.
Some killer endorsements on that one, too, based on that hit.
If he could still just get royalties off replays of that thing, still.
Scott on the text line, Manti Te'o at Notre Dame and his made-up girlfriend would have made bank on name, image, and likeness.
Lene Kukua would have been starting an account for her.
A dating app could have really run some circles with Manti Te'o. Oh, those would have been some killer commercials.
This is Manti Te'o, brought to you by Tinder. Yeah, it could have been great.
Plenty of fish. Oh, so great.
This time they're
so
real.
Great. But these people are real.
These people are actually real people.
We think.
Oh, man. Lindsay on the text line says Jimmer Fredette would have cleaned up in college.
He's a great one. Talk about you can't take your eyes off him player in college. Pretty quick flame out in the NBA. I don't even know. When's the last time he was in the NBA? You would know this.
He didn't make it further than his Sacramento Kings stop, but I'm telling you, he is killing it with the Shanghai Sharks now, and that is not a joke. He's actually having a really good career.
Well, I don't doubt it.
He's killing it.
I mean, he's a ridiculous shooter.
But
there's a guy who I thought maybe in the right situation with that shot could be something in this league. Like right now, you don't think he could? But
16-year-old me had Jimmer fever.
Oh, I mean, he was like you couldn't not watch. Again,
I'm sure you did.
Well, so Jimmer is a great example. So everybody talks about Zion, like Duke helped his brand, and I agree. Jimmer is a great example. Like who the hell ever wants to watch BYU basketball? But that year, yep. BYU's playing tonight? Okay. I'm flipping over to ESPN
Pulling up from 43 feet, yeah.
There's a great example.
Jimmer and Kawhi was the hottest college basketball rivalry that year.
Oh yeah.
That was a moment in time. They played like 3 times, and all 3 of those games were incredible.
Get out of here, Kawhi.
It's Jimmer time.
Matt from Camden saying Eric Crouch would have made bank.
Yeah, well, he's another one. Like the Nebraska quarterback, and even like Oklahoma back in the day quarterback situation with a bunch of guys who weren't going to be pro quarterbacks, but they were great in those systems. Great examples.
This is a good one from Jacob on Periscope. Tyler Hansborough at North Carolina.
Yeah, sure. 4 years of that guy.
Goodness gracious.
In your face.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It's a huge deal.
Big deal.
Yeah. We'll continue this conversation when we come back. Get to Elijah Campbell's list as well. That's coming up next. But first, though, got to tell you about my friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And look, the NBA playoffs are well underway. The conference finals wrapped up on one side, still going on the Eastern Conference side. And during the conference finals, new users get 30-1 odds on any team to win their next game. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. The Bucks and the Hawks still going at it in the Eastern Conference Finals. Game 6 coming up. Maybe you like the Hawks in Game 6 to keep that series alive. There are even more ways to win on FanDuel throughout the playoffs. And when you do win, getting your money is a layup. You'll get paid in as little as 24 hours. Plus the app, it's very, very easy to use. Just sign up today with promo code ROB to bet the NBA Conference Finals with 30-1 odds. Once again, that promo code is ROB to unlock 30-1 odds on any playoff team to win their next game exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. New users only. Must wager in designated offer market. A $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Later this morning, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you'll win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you later this morning at 9:45. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well, discussing name, image, and likeness, and throwing names out there of who we would have liked to have seen, been able to use some name, image, and likeness at the college level in years past. I've thrown out my list. Joe Rexrode has thrown out his list. Now Elijah Campbell, it is time for yours. I've been looking forward to your list the most. So without further ado, I turn it over to you.
There better be some Blue Raider love on this list.
There absolutely is. I have a ton of local flavor here, so don't worry about that. And of
course,
like it. I've gotten some names on here that have already been picked off. And of course, I prepared for this, so I have like 20 names.
Attaboy.
Monica Abbott, of course, Jimmer Fredette, Marshall Henderson, Chris Lofton, all on my list for sure. But I'll go ahead and start from the top here. Robby, you mentioned Eric Ainge, but before Eric Ainge was Casey Clausen.
Correct.
And that was my first favorite Tennessee Vols quarterback growing up.
That's a great one.
The Iceman could have made some killer icy ads over at the local Walmart, wherever you may be.
The Florida Gator Killer.
That's right. The guy was awesome. Had a winning, one of the few quarterbacks in recent Tennessee history that has a winning record against Florida.
That is correct.
Number 2, Mylone Clark, Tennessee Tech basketball player, won the dunk contest in like 2003 over in Cookeville. Could have done some killer ads like Big O's, because that's a superior donut in Cookeville. Sorry, Ralph's.
Nice.
That's an ad.
You got actual ads they can do.
Yeah,
I love it.
Exactly. So there's some like Cookeville local flavor. Went to Tech basketball camp and he jumped over me when I was a kid. Guy was awesome. Austin P. Fly Williams in the 70s. Guy was a street ball legend at Foster Park in New York.
And maybe would have had a different course of life.
Maybe, but played in Austin P, the nation's leading scorer. I think that was 73, but he was a 73-74 OVC Player of the Year. For his career, averaged about 28 points a game. Guy was incredible, but was also an incredible personality. That was, I think, the character Sugar Dunkerton / Coffee Black / Downtown Funky Stuff Malone and Semi-Pro is like loosely based off Fly Williams.
I mean, that's
very loosely.
I mean, look, the school's branding is still because of him from the 70s.
Flies open. Let's go P. Yeah, I mean,
like think about that.
They made T-shirts. Imagine how much money he could have gotten from those T-shirts. Yeah. Guy was a legend there. So Fly Williams is on that list. Jim Bob Cooter, one of the most famous fourth-string quarterbacks in the history of Tennessee football, turned Lions offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter. The name alone will sell itself in East Tennessee. Trust me.
Bait and tackle, motor oil.
God.
So many ways you can go with that.
Anything.
Bad banana pudding. I mean,
this guy,
so many ways.
There's
Turn
no
his
such
microphone
thing.
off.
Yeah, I have the power to do that. I don't know if he realizes that, but I have that power right now. Ken Dorsey, Miami, who's still one of the greatest college quarterbacks to ever play, most decorated ones, and I know it helps when guys like Andre Johnson and Santana Moss are who you're throwing to, but a very decorated college quarterback, never got to make anything in the pros. I don't even think he took a single snap in the NFL. So Ken Dorsey's on that list. Giddy Potts from MTSU.
Yes.
I
was counting on you to hit some Giddy Potts.
Of course. The name, obviously, is a fantastic college basketball name. He held that title for a while. The upset of Michigan State, I mean, anywhere in Murfreesboro would have loved to have had Giddy Potts endorse them for the last 5 years.
Like the spring of 2016, he would have it would have gone nuts.
Yeah. Even in his last
Giddy Potts
2 years.
In that town.
Yeah.
Right. And then he was great. Yeah, great the next year. They beat Minnesota. I mean, yes.
Yeah, so Giddy's on that list. And for a similar reason, I put the entire 2006 George Mason basketball team. I mean, those guys who wouldn't have had much NIL value before that. They make that crazy run. And unless you watch the Nigerian basketball team in the Olympics, you don't know who Tony Skinn is. He's now an assistant at Ohio State, I think. But the point guard on that team, incredible basketball player. They would have made some pretty good money based on that run alone. So that's one that's up there for me.
And there are a lot of examples like that.
Tons.
Like Osmus this year, or whatever. The player who no one knows, and all of a sudden millions and millions know. Mm-hmm. Yes, should be able to capitalize on that.
It would be incredible. Marcus Dupree, the star of the documentary, The Best That Never Was, former Oklahoma running back, who had, I guess, what at the time was the craziest recruitment circus ever seen. Obviously didn't pan out very well, hence the title of that documentary.
Incredible player.
Yeah, incredible player, but could have cashed in on that a lot earlier than he ever did. And then, of course, some other of my favorite women's college athletes, Kat Osterman at Texas, softball pitcher. She was unhittable for a while. Jenny Finch, I know, got a little more famous later on, but when she was in college, could have made bank on her name, image, likeness. Ivory Lotta from North Carolina. And then Alexis Hornbuckle, Tennessee basketball player.
I thought about Hornbuckle.
Teammate with Candace Parker, was always kind of known as Candace Parker's teammate, but she bailed them out in a couple of those games during that tournament run. A couple clutch shots, some buzzer beaters. She was really, really good herself. To my knowledge, didn't have much of a WNBA career, but could have really cashed in on that in Knoxville with the Lady Vols craze that they have.
Those are good.
Those are great.
Very well done. I like Elijah. Great list there. I had faith in him.
Solid.
I knew you'd come through. You see the Bo Jackson one?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great one, too. Now, of course, there's an example of someone, he did just fine. But, yes, think of Bo at Auburn.
Larger than life. Could have just gotten whatever he wanted endorsement-wise.
Nate giving some love to the Colquitt brothers at Tennessee.
Oh, I thought about putting Dustin
First
Colquitt
family
on
of
here.
Tennessee football, the Colquitts.
Dustin Colquitt in 2004 might have been the most popular of all as a punter.
Yeah.
Mostly because that offense was stagnant. And I guess 2003.
He was on the field a lot.
He was, him and Michael Munoz, I guess, were the only All-Americans on that team. But he was great. He could have made some money.
From Arkansas, Matt Jones and D-Mac would have made some bank. Yeah. Darren McFadden at Arkansas.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with Darren McFarland.
Well, and there's a guy. So there's a guy who I would have told you at the time. Oh man, he's going to have a heck of an NFL career. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And
well,
it's so
Trent Richardson. in Alabama.
No question about it. That guy was going to be great.
Value peaked in college.
Yeah.
I mean, look, as you go through these lists, you can go on and on with these, on and on and on, and again, whatever team you're a fan of, you can think right off the top of your head. The vast majority, I mean, the rarity is the great player in college who then actually banks it at the next level, which is, again, one of my biggest problems with college sports in recent years is how much college programs have gone to. And when I covered Michigan State, they put up this whole new facility, and it was all the guys who had made the NFL, okay? So it's like, the message is, come here, we send guys to the NFL. Well, okay, so give me the wall, because that's a tiny percentage of all the players you've had in this program. I mean, it's bothered me for a while now how much it's sold like we will get you to the NFL when everybody knows damn well that it's still such a rarity, such a difficult thing to do. So I wonder if this, certainly we're already seeing that college programs are jumping on this. Now we will help you maximize your NIL.
Duke basketball made a killer video about that yesterday on Twitter with all the Twitter follows they have and all those connections. Like, if I was a college basketball recruit and I saw that and I was good enough to go anywhere, like, that's incredibly enticing. And Kentucky did the same thing yesterday. Like, you see these big brands automatically boosting the market that they're in and being the biggest show in town and being able to get all these eyeballs on you, and those eyeballs involve endorsements and businesses.
Now, of course, I still would say to that, they still have X number of scholarships to give, and there's still X number of minutes available in a given game, right?
Exactly.
So there's going to be choices for people, and I think even more in football, but it's like, okay, am I waiting? Like Andy Staples wrote something today, am I waiting 3 years to be on the field at Ohio State, or am I going to be right now I'm on the field at Minnesota? But yeah, teams are jumping all over it. And you already had a lot of value going to Kentucky or Duke, and you know that they're going to pour everything into maximizing this.
Christopher on Periscope says his triplets say hi, guys. That's Joe and that's Robby watching on the stream on Periscope. We appreciate it.
Triplets.
What's up, peeps?
All right.
How's it going?
Hey, kids.
Absolutely. Sorry for the scary sight this early in the morning with myself and Joe Rexrode.
It's great. I love your duck shirt today,
Thank you.
man.
I appreciate that. When we come back, it's time for Call Your Shot Friday. A little bit later in the show today. A lot of things we're doing later in the show today. We'll get to Teron Davenport coming up at 9 o'clock as well. We need your bold predictions in the world of sports. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. NBA Finals, Nashville SC, Stanley Cup Final. Everything is on the table. We'll do that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game.
sports weekend has arrived. You know what that means.
Shoot your shot.
It's time for Call Your Shot Friday with Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
And it is that time of the week, time for Call Your Shot Friday here on Robby and Rexrode. We need your bold predictions in the world of sports. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. A little bit later edition of Call Your Shot Friday today. Had to move some things around, but we got to it. That's what we do here on the show.
We're versatile.
We are versatile here on Robby and Rexrode.
We're nimble.
Joe Rexrode, do you have a recap from last week's Call Your Shot Friday?
Yeah, we're pretty bad at this. For me, Bucks will win in 5. I still I feel like I would have been right, but I'm not right. I wasn't right.
How do you feel like you would have been right?
Well, because they would have ended up coming back if Giannis was.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Lightning win by 2 goals or more in Game 1. I was wrong about that, too. It was a 1-goal game. And I said Vanderbilt will win the national championship. Jack Leiter will dominate Game 1. I was half right, but the main part of that, I was wrong. Robby, you went Vanderbilt will win 4-3.
It was 3-1.
It was 3-1 against NC State, and you had Carter Young hitting a homer. That definitely didn't happen. And you had Islanders winning in overtime. That also didn't happen.
They lost 1-0. Porth
had the Lightning winning Game 7 in overtime via Braden Point goal. So, nope. He has this could still be true. Porth has Hawks Suns in the NBA Finals, so that's still alive. And also, Porth said Mississippi State will win the College World Series. And again, remember, at that point, they hadn't even beaten Texas to get to the final series. So,
that's correct.
Good job, Ryan Porth.
Way to go, Porth.
See? Credit Ryan Porth when he deserves it.
That's good.
Porth, the most successful one from Call Your Shot Friday last week. So with that in mind, Elijah Campbell, would you like to kick us off this week with your bold predictions in the world of sports coming up over this weekend?
All right. I'll go ahead and I'll do that now. I'll go keep it in the NBA.
Okay.
The Bucks are going to finish the Atlanta Hawks in 6. And, of course, we don't know what Trae Young and Giannis' statuses are. However, I have a feeling that even if Trae Young plays, they could still pretty much win that game. The Bucks are so deep, and if they just get anything from the bench, I mean, it's over. Brook Lopez was great last night. Bobby Portis had a really good game, and he's had a pretty solid series. He's been really good so far.
22 last night from Bobby Portis.
Great on defense as well. I mean, give me the Bucks to win that series. They're just the better team. The Hawks have been overachievers, so the Bucks are winning the series. The Canadians will win the game tonight. They will not win the series, but they're going to win one game, and I think that one's going to be tonight. And then the Lightning will eventually win the Stanley Cup Finals in 5.
Okay. So one game for Montreal. Lightning win in 5.
Yes. And then I will go ahead and double down on one of my called shots from, this is March? The Padres are winning the pennant right now. They went through a little slump, but they're going to come back. And they're still in a good position. They can finish 3rd in that division, still make the playoffs. I think they will. I think they'll make a run through it, especially if they're able to get Clevenger back at all.
Yep.
The pitching staff would be lights out. The hitting lineup, lights out. Padres still winning the pennant.
Every time you produce on a Friday, you manage to get a Padres.
There's a lot of Padres love.
In.
Even as a Cincinnati Reds fan, I've hopped on that Padres bandwagon so hard. It's the uniforms. It's Tatis. Darvish has been incredible. There's what's not to love? Their center fielder's named Tommy Pham. That's awesome.
That's true. Elijah's got a Tatis jersey that he's put on back order. It's coming in next week.
That's right. And it's definitely those sick jerseys they have right now. Those are so clean.
There you go. That is Elijah Campbell's edition of Call Your Shot Friday. Joe Rexrode, your edition of Call Your Shot Friday.
All right, what? I've got a contrasting shot. Lightning sweep. I feel like a lot of my shots are very disrespectful to the Canadians. Sorry,
yes, they are.
But I got the Lightning in 4. In the NBA Finals, again, I'm not going to be here next week, so I'm going to call a little bit deeper shot here with the Suns will beat the Bucks in the NBA Finals in 6. And my final one is that Dabo Swinney will show up at ACC Media Days, and he will have a lame press conference in which he claims that he supported name, image, likeness all along, even though, as anybody who's on Twitter may have noticed, all the quotes about, well, if there's ever any money, I'm going to get out of this, I'm done, and there's already enough entitlement going along. Dude who makes $7 million a year coaching football, talking about entitlement. Anyway, Dabo, can't wait for that lame presser.
Joe Rexrode is not a big fan of Dabo Swinney.
Well, listen, I think he's a great coach. I think some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth should be stuck somewhere else immediately after it comes out of his mouth. It's ridiculous. But, hey, it's okay. I look forward to his lame press conference.
Might tear an Achilles backpedaling so hard, so I hope he stretches.
Yeah. Wow. ACC Media Days. I just check it out. I guarantee you. He'll talk about how he was all in on this, and it's going to be great.
Can't wait to see what happens on that front. All right, my edition of Call Your Shot Friday is this. Jack Eichel of the Buffalo Sabres will be traded, and he will be traded this weekend. So I would look for imminent news on Jack Eichel. I got a feeling he gets traded this weekend from Buffalo.
We're gonna
he's not coming.
Finish the called shot?
No, I don't know where he's going. He's not coming here.
Just take a guess.
Jack Eichel gets traded to Minnesota.
It's an extra credit for the shot.
Minnesota.
There
you go.
Ooh.
He ends up in Minnesota with the Wild.
That would make them interesting.
That would make them very interesting. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to win the NBA Finals. Not only will they close out this series, they win the NBA Finals against the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. Milwaukee in 6 games against the Suns. I agree with Joe. Tampa Bay sweeps the final. I've seen enough. I think Montreal gave Tampa Bay their best shot in Game 2, and Tampa Bay won anyway. So I think this one's over. I think this doesn't even get back to Florida. It's over with the next 2 games with Tampa Bay winning in a sweep. So that's my edition. Call Your Shot Friday.
I'm the only one believing in magic here that the Canadians
You
pulled
have
one
been
out.
very consistent with your support for the Montreal Canadiens all playoffs long at this point.
I got to give them one more ride, one more hoorah, one more last underdog plus odds bet that I'm going to cash out on.
I actually
it's
think
a victory lap. This one is.
I think Robby and I actually called more of a shot there, because I think the more realistic scenario is the Canadians get one of these and they go out in 5. I think we called the stronger shot there than you did.
I don't know. I mean, the consensus was they wouldn't have even won a game in the first round. So the fact that they could even win one against the best team by a mile.
That's a good point.
I would say it might be a little more of a stretch.
I'm waiting for a friend of the show, Bob, to tell us that Canadians are coming back to win this whole thing.
He's not been quite as strong with Montreal love in this series, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, taking your thoughts and your called shots for this week. Nate texting in, called shot, the Predators dump enough salary to sign Taylor Hall, and he will still suck. Wow.
That's a good tack on to that called shot.
My guess is Taylor Hall doesn't end up here.
That's a shot, though. I mean, look, that's what this is.
I see the connection. It's John Hines. He coached Taylor Hall.
Best season.
I will say, Taylor Hall played pretty well with Boston coming down the stretch.
He looked kind of good.
It's amazing what getting out of Buffalo can do.
Mm-hmm.
He looked pretty good. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I like that one.
Let's go back to the text line. Shane from Ashland City texting in. Here's some free money for you. Padres -1.5 for Tampa Bay money line, or 5 total goals scored for Tampa Bay in their game tonight. I took Tampa game, 5 totals, and Padres -1.5. So, number one, more love for the San Diego Padres here on the show. A lot of love for the Tampa Bay Lightning as well.
Yeah, like when you're talking 2 Tampa Bay teams now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're confusing me, but I think I follow now.
I got a texter that says, called shot is Trevor Bauer will get suspended. Lots of stuff going on right now with Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, the fact that he hasn't been from the start is just amazing to me.
But it's Major League Baseball.
Yeah. By the way, on my text line, on the on the name, image, likeness, where is Willie Dunnick on the list? This is from Jerry
Two-sport athlete.
Two-sport athlete at Vandy, and Jerry Helper sends 4 money bags. Imagine what Willie D would have been cleaning up in this town.
Willie D could have made some money here.
We need, on Darren, Donick, and Chase today, I want Willie D to tell the listeners where he would have endorsed, like what he would have endorsed as a 2-sport superstar at Vanderbilt.
Could have done a lot of good pickleball commercials right now, too. Oh, Willie.
He could have.
Is he nationally ranked in pickleball?
Could be.
Maybe. I mean, he's got his ranking had to have dropped after the injury. So maybe an orthopedic clinic might be be more around it, but maybe if he retires, he could be retired pickleball legend.
That's right.
Willie Donning.
Christopher on Periscope. My called shot. The Braves come back and take the NL East, but then bow out in the first round.
Okay.
Braves playing a little bit better as of late.
Yeah, they're on a little bit of a run here.
Yeah, 20 runs will help.
Put up 20 in a game. You're probably going to be in good shape most nights. Kathlina on the text line says, I love Elijah. Go Montreal. There you go.
Is that a called shot?
My favorite part of this whole Montreal playoff run is just that everyone that listens knows that I've kind of coattailed the Canadians on this.
You have.
And I've got more interaction through that than anything else. I'm gonna miss dealing with my fellow Canadian believers.
So you're just milking it then.
Your San Diego Padres love and your Montreal Canadiens love coming through radiantly here on this segment.
Exactly, and I have some followers on that. So
and Jimmer Fredette.
There you go.
And, of course, Jimmer Fredette.
Single-day tickets for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix scheduled for August the 6th through the 8th go on sale this Tuesday, July 6th, beginning at 10 a.m. With the majority of these reserved grandstands sold out, a limited amount of single-day reserved grandstand and general admission tickets will be available for each of the 3 days of the Urban Racing Festival during the NTT IndyCar Series. This Tuesday, get your tickets by visiting MusicCityGP.com /tickets, Ticketmaster.com, or call the Titans Ticket Office at 615-555-4650. When we come back, speaking of the Titans, we will be joined by Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD as well. We'll do that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Right, a little holiday weekend coming up here, and to help us enter into the holiday weekend in style, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, and also host of Talking with TD. Teron Davenport, presented by Freedom Tire Guys, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at freedomtireguys.com. TD, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you taking time to join us, two idiots, this morning here on the program.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? It's good to be on. You know what happened this morning, right?
What's that?
Woke up. So what's that mean?
That's right. It means you're blessed. It's Feel Good Friday, TD.
Means we won.
That's right.
What it means.
There you go.
Feel Good Friday here on Robby and Rexrode. TD, we'll get to the Titans here in just a few minutes, but I do want to get your thoughts on what we're seeing right now in college sports with name, image, and likeness coming into effect. These athletes now able to make some money for their name, image, and likeness, and we've already seen this really explode yesterday with college athletes getting sponsorships left and right. What do you think about all this? What do you think this does for college athletics as we know it?
Well, I think it's about time because, having been a student athlete before, I understand the balance and how tough it is to do both. I mean, imagine waking up in the morning at 5:30 a.m. and having to go to what we used to call dawn patrol, right? And going through all types of calisthenics and conditioning and weights and all of that. And then from there you go to breakfast, and then you have to make it to your first class, and then you go to that class, and then another class, you go to lunch, and then after that you go to film, and after that you go to practice, and then you have study hall, and then you go to bed because you're dog tired. So unless you've been through that, you don't really understand the dedication that it takes to be a student athlete. And that's why oftentimes, and I'm not saying everybody, but oftentimes the people who are so against athletes being paid are the ones that haven't been there and done that. And if you look at these big schools, I mean, take Ohio State, for example, the Horseshoe, 108,000 people go there to watch them, 5 times a year? Imagine if each of those tickets are $10. It's a mere $10. That's over $1 million per appearance. Right? And then you take that and you look at bowl games. When you go to a bowl game, your school gets at least $5 to $10 million. All that is going back to the school. So a lot of the non-student athletes that go to the weight room or go to the awesome facilities are there for them. Guess what that's provided for? The basketball team, the football team, right? The very people who you're saying shouldn't be paid. So I think it's about time. And I don't think it's going to do anything for college athletes as far as like making college bad. I think it's going to make college better because now you're going to see just, guys, their personalities and girls, their personalities showing through. And it's all about getting the endorsements. So it just basically is controlling not even controlling, it's releasing control of what these schools used to do. So guys like Dabo Swinney who say they might stop coaching if athletes get paid. Well, you know what? You better be thankful that these athletes are out there doing what they're doing, because otherwise Dabo Swinney wouldn't get that big money, So, and it's not his money to be concerned about, and it's not other people's money to be concerned about. And I think it's a great opportunity.
Love everything you just said there, TD. Now I want to know, let's go back in time. Name, image, likeness is available. What is Teron Davenport endorsing in college?
Well, you know what? In college, because of the way I was, I probably would have endorsed Old English or something like that,
Oh, man, a 64 or a 40?
Oh, yeah, the 64s, man. You get the bonus, yeah. That's probably, but no, all jokes aside, it probably would have been like something like that or some type of Nike sneakers, those type of things.
I'm going to be thinking about those 64 ounces of OE. They'll last like 15 ounces. You got to grind through that, man.
You really do.
I love
and you
it. Notice
now they make them out of plastic. There's no more glass. So too many people were using them as weapons.
Little safety measures being taken place on that front. TD, getting into the Titans now, as you look at this offseason, everything that's happened up to this point, and you came out with a good piece along with the rest of the ESPN NFL Nation reporters the other day on ESPN.com. What do you think is still the biggest question left with this group as they head into training camp now coming up just a few weeks away?
Yeah, I think the biggest question, there's a couple. I would probably say the tight end position, and it's really interesting watching that whole thing work out. If you, Rexrode, I'm sure you've noticed that Anthony Ferguson, he's gotten a lot bigger lower body-wise, so it's a good thing to see just as far as a guy that's going to be asked to be in line. So you know what that means. He has to be able to drive off of those legs that are bigger and block. And that's going to be a transition for him because, primarily he's been flexed or even lined up out wide. So I think the big thing is just, okay, how are they going to not be predictable within that offense? Whereas if Ferkser's in, they're passing. If Swaim's in, they're running. You want to make sure that you have that balance and take advantage of the opportunities that, you could have by not being predictable. I think another thing is, and I asked Todd Downing about it just as far as being able to make sure everybody's happy. Because right now, everybody's saying, hey, if I'm not the guy this week, I'll be fine. I know I'm the guy next week. But when you're going through a losing streak, those type of things end up being magnified, and you get a little more emotional about it. So I want to see how that works. I think that's a big question. Todd Downing, fortunately, he when I asked him about it, he said that every week presents a different challenge, and all the weapons that they have will be good for them to attack in different ways. But let's face the facts. Derrick Henry has to touch the ball 25 times a game, at least, in order for you to win. So how are you going to do that and then get A.J. Brown his touches and Julio Jones his touches and Ferkser his touches and so on and so forth? So that's a big question there offensively. Defense-wise, it's health, right? How is Bud Dupree going to come back from the ACL? How is Caleb Farley going to recover from the back surgery, the procedure that he had? What are you going to get from these guys early in the season? So I think those are the main things for me.
On the Henry front, TD, it's obviously we're all out here, guessing like exactly what it's going to look like offensively, who's going to benefit, how's it going to work. Like you said, I mean, you're right. I think if they're winning, I think it'll be very easy for everyone to be like, hey, next week I'll get more targets or whatever. And when you lose, you feel like you could do more to help your team win. I mean, that they got to win. But with Henry, I think it's interesting the idea of, well, maybe this means, more yards per carry, more big plays, less stacked boxes. I almost wonder if you do have less stacked boxes, haven't some of his big runs come because of a stacked box? Because you get to the second level and now you got one less guy, right? Like, how do you think that plays out?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And if you look at yards after contact last year, Derrick Henry had more yards after contact than anyone else had yards running, period. And that's just because of what he's able to do. And I think the best example of what you just said, if you go back to the 2019 divisional game, the one where he broke Matt Judon's tackle at the line of scrimmage and scooted away from everybody, and somehow Marcus Peters tracked him down. But that was against a stacked box. So to your point, right, you break that tackle, you get to that second level, and if you have the speed that Derrick Henry has, the long speed that is, you could pull away. And, I mean, you look at it, there's only 3 guys at the third level. So you get past that second one, I mean, it's usually good. And most safeties, somehow they cannot get that right angle to bring Derrick Henry down. So, yeah, 100%. It's just really, like Julio Jones said, every week you got to pick your poison. And even when you pick to stop the run, that's when they're still doing really well. And Taylor Lewan, I remember having a conversation with him a couple of years ago about that, just how they block it up so well and blocking that space and comboing up to another level of the defense. And then you look at, guys like Corey Davis, what he would do down the field blocking, A.J. Brown down the field blocking. It all just comes together. It's like tumblers to a lock, right? You get the first part of the code, the second, the third, the fourth, and everything, it unlocks.
Teron Davenport on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And TD, last thing for you here. We've talked so much about Bud Dupree coming in and not only the impact that he can bring individually, but how he can help Jeffrey Simmons as well. But I want to ask you about Danico Autry. How big a deal, how underrated do you think this Danico Autry signing has been in terms of the overall discussion about this Titans team?
Yeah, I think it's hugely underrated. And if you watch Danico Autry, what he does is he brings the dog mentality to that front. And his hands are very powerful. The guy has 7.5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman. So that lets you know that he is the truth. So I think that's good as far as what they want to do. He's well experienced at working hand in hand with another dominant defensive tackle. You saw what he did with DeForest Buckner. So I think that's going to work with with Jeffrey Simmons, whereas they could do a lot of twists and things like that up front. But another area where it's really helping, and Simmons told me this on when I asked him, about that relationship, he said he's already out there just showing them stuff and giving them different tweaks and tricks and things to do. And I think that's important, especially at that level, because, right, everybody's talented. Everybody's good. But when you have an OG to kind of come in and say, okay, well, in this situation, this is what I do, when he shoots his hands this way, if you smack this one and use this one, those are all things that can make a guy like Simmons even better, who's already really good, right? One of the best defenders under 25. But then when you complement that with the different array of veteran things that the Nico Autry can bring, now it makes it even better. And then also, you won't be able to double team Simmons as much. And also with Dupree and just what they could do up front, it's a really good situation for them. They're just going to have to, manage to stay healthy and go out there and do what they have to do.
TD, you got a new episode of Talking with TD that is out, including a name I know Titans fans will be very excited to hear from. What can we hear from, or what can we expect on the latest edition of Talking with TD?
Yeah, well, as always, you got Run TMC, and I had Chris Sanders on, and we talked about his vision for how a wide receiver U would be, and that was fresh off of tight ends U. So tying that in line, Delaney Walker, man, I ran into Delaney and got to talk to him Thursday when they had the TEU summit. That was just an awesome experience. But yeah, so we got Delaney on, man. He talks some shop, tells a couple Mariota story. He went over just how that release went and his feelings, and it's definitely a great episode. And we even took it back to his days in San Francisco because, as you guys know, I know Delaney from back then. So yeah, man, it's an awesome episode, man. And yeah, man, it's exclusive. No one else talked to him. So I had to make sure we gave the people what they want.
Absolutely. You can check that out on the latest episode of Talking with TD. Teron, appreciate you so much taking time to join us this morning.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you guys, man, and God bless.
Absolutely. You as well. Hope you have a great holiday weekend. Teron Davenport, presented by Freedom Tire Guys, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at freedomtireguys.com. We'll be right back, react a little bit to what TD had to say there, get back into the news of the day as well. Victor Arvidsson traded from the Predators to the Los Angeles Kings. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. The ultimate social experience is coming to Nashville. My Wine Society presents Blended Festival August 13th and 14th at First Horizon Park with live performances by Cascade, Little John, Matt Stell, Blanco Brown, Bryce Vine, and more. Enjoy Blended's massive 100-foot wine tasting tent and indulge in culinary activations by Nashville's hottest chefs. There's also Blended's relaxing wellness lounge, VIP village, and a whole lot more. Get Blended tickets on sale now at blendedfestival.com. Use promo code GAME at checkout for 10% off of your ticket. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Thanks to Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, for joining us in the last segment. Just a few weeks away now from training camp, Joe Rexrode. By the time you get back from vacation next week, be pretty close to training camp coming into the fold.
All I can think about now is 64 ounces of OE. I gotta go track down some OE. If you know, you know.
Gonna get an early start that holiday weekend coming up.
Man, if you know, you know.
If you know well enough, you never want it again. That's the whole point.
I will tell you what. I'm gonna say probably going back to 1994 maybe. Okay, last time for me. So it would probably be quite a shock to the system, but for old time's sake,
please record this.
Probably pour more out than anything. But the last, few ounces of an OE 64. I don't care who you are, what you're trying to do. It is soup.
That response by TD could have been my favorite thing we've done all week.
That's fantastic.
It was amazing.
This
TD
is TD.
continues to be a legend.
This is TD for OE.
That's right. Can you imagine?
Mint it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
This is TD for OE. You know what I do when I get off the field?
With a Wu-Tang beat in the background, too. Like, that's the best radio commercial you could ever produce.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Way to go, Teron Davenport. Continues to be a legend here on the show. Every Friday, you can find him here on the show with us. Joe, the news of the day here in this market, Victor Arvidsson traded from the Nashville Predators to the Los Angeles Kings. The Predators get a second-round draft pick this year, a third-rounder next year in return for Victor Arvidsson. Just your reaction to the trade, and what do you think this signals for the Predators as they continue to move forward here through this offseason?
Well, I think on its own, given the situation, I think it was a good return. I think it makes sense. I think it opens up a little bit of money. It signifies that David Poile recognizes that you can't just keep going forward, despite how this team performed in the second half and really in the playoff series against Carolina. Like, you gotta shake things up, and I think this opens the door for some young players. I think this also simplifies things for the expansion draft, and then we'll see what he can or can't pull off with that. But we've been talking about this potential move for a long time. No one should be blindsided by this. Like, if you're a fan who's been paying attention to the team, you had to know this was probably the most likely core player to be traded based on the core player situation. And to me, getting a second and a third for Arvidsson, because if I'm another GM, I'm looking at it and really I'm concerned about where his career is going. I think that's a pretty good return.
Yeah, and look, David Poile was on with Darren Donick and Chase yesterday here on this station and talked about Arvidsson, said, he could have traded Arvidsson to other teams, but the return back would have included taking on some salary, taking on, a roster player on the way back. And look, without knowing who those players specifically were, that's what today's NHL is. You've got to keep that in mind now with the flat cap. You got to give yourself as much salary cap flexibility as you can. And the simple truth of the matter is, you look around the league right now, there's not a ton of teams that have salary cap flexibility. So the Predators, they got over $22 million in space right now for next year. And you've got to figure out what you're going to do with Granlund. You've got to sign UC Saros. Now, you've got extensions that you think could be coming for Philip Forsberg and Mattias Ekholm. Those would not factor in until the following year. So still some pretty good space to do something this year if need be. But I am interested, does getting rid of Arvidsson and with the expansion draft coming up, does that change how you approach free agency? Could you be a player for Taylor Hall, as Nate threw out there earlier on the text line? Could you be involved in one of these trade discussions, a bigger trade with a Jack Eichel? I don't know. I still don't believe the Predators really have the assets to pull something like that off, but maybe. Who knows? if you free up if you free up this amount of money, and who knows what happens with the expansion draft, you free up some more money, you give yourself options at that point where to begin this offseason, the Predators didn't really have a ton of options.
But still, those two names you just mentioned, you still can't do those unless you unload one of your two centers. Right. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, this does –
I guess you could make things pretty difficult coming up, though.
Yeah. I mean, we're also – you always have to keep in mind extensions coming up. You've got Ekholm. You got Forsberg. But then, of course, Granlund. And, of course, is Pecorine coming back at what price? And,
Yep.
and if not, who is your number 2 goalie at what price? There are a lot of different things flying around there. This helps a little bit. I think this helps, like the Granlund pursuit, which should be, I would think, pretty urgent when it's time for that. That's a big deal here. But those guys you're talking about, you've got to convince Seattle to take one of your two centers for that to be possible, I think, based on my rudimentary math skills.
And I still don't think that's going to be very likely at this point. Maybe it ends up happening. I don't know. We'll see how Seattle approaches that. Elliot Friedman was on yesterday with Darren Donegan Chase. He doesn't think it's very likely for Seattle. I don't think it's very likely for Seattle either. I mean, if I had to bet, Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene are going to be on this team next year. So that's the way I'm kind of approaching it. We'll see if David Poile could swing something like that. I will say, though, the extension part of this is interesting. We had somebody text in earlier saying the Predators shouldn't give an extension to Philip Forsberg. They should make him play out this last year on the contract and see if he can earn a big-time contract in a contract year, play better, have a career year. I mean, maybe. I think the risky run at that point is you don't sign him, he has a big year, and then he's gone at that point.
I mean, even if he has like an okay year for him, he's still your best forward.
He is. Look, I think it's still a priority to get him locked up, but I do wonder from his perspective, like you're this close to unrestricted free agency. You got a year left. They just traded Victor Arvidsson. I think patience at this point may be required a little bit from Philip Forsberg to see what the complete picture looks like when this offseason is done. But if I'm Philip Forsberg right now, I'm not signing an extension until I get to the end of this offseason and see what the direction looks like. Like, there's no way if I'm Philip Forsberg, I'm signing one right now. Like, I'm waiting to see what this looks like. And then the question becomes, if he waits too long, at what point do you start to get pretty nervous if you're David Poile and the Predators that he's not going to sign one? Because what you can't have happen is to get all the way through next season and you lose Philip Forsberg for nothing in unrestricted free agency.
Right.
So this could get a little interesting.
So it's just one little emoji, and again, you expect teammates and friends of Arvidsson.
And I don't want people to way overreact to that.
But it's still big thumbs down.
Yeah.
From Phil. And listen, any Preds fan who thinks, yeah, well, he hasn't become a 40-goal scorer. Well, okay, he's still.
It's pretty good.
You want him to be right at the center of your core. Beyond this, you want him to be signed. It's hard enough to find guys like him, let alone the transformational star who we've talked about that this team doesn't have. Boy, it sure is nice to have Forsbergs, though.
Yeah, you'll take a couple more of those too.
Right,
be pretty good to have on your side. Look, I don't know how that's going to affect it. I mean, I think it's fair to say, based on some conversations I had yesterday, that not a big fan of this trade. I wouldn't expect very many players to be a big fan of this trade, but I also think there's a dose of reality that needs to be involved here as well. If you're a player and you didn't see something like this coming, maybe not specifically Arvidsson, but if you didn't see something like this coming with this core, you're probably just living in fantasy land. Like, I don't know what to tell you at that point.
Yeah, the argument is the finish. Figured it out, pretty much new coach. It's kind of like his first year. Went on a huge tear. Look at how we played. This is what we're going to be all next year now. We almost beat Carolina. It was close. This is what we're going to be, and why would you mess that up? But another thing you can say to that is, I mean, Arvidsson, because of another injury, missed a chunk of this and wasn't even part of the playoff push. So... Yep. Tolvanen, you're up.
Yeah.
Tomasino, make the team. They want you to.
They do.
I mean, there's still ways, and this also I do think signifies a little bit of Poyle. Maybe, obviously, it's a speed game. Speed is so critical, but this has been a small team in some spots, and that has been not great in the postseason.
Yep.
I mean, Arvidsson, terrific player when he was right, and even then, his regular seasons exceeded his postseasons pretty significantly.
When we come back, it is time for Weekend Winners here on Robby and Rexrode. Lots happening this weekend in the world of sports. We've got some winners to toss your way next. We'll do that next on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game. And it is time for Weekend Winners here on Robby and Rexrode. Lots of things going on this weekend in the world of sports. The NBA Conference Finals, Stanley Cup Final, Major League Baseball, Nashville SC in action. We've got it all coming your way on Weekend Winners. Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth is out this week, but how did we do last week? Where do the standings sit now as we are about to wrap up the competition of weekend winners? Maybe only another week or two left.
Is this it? This might be my last weekend winners.
Could be. Depends on how the NBA Finals goes. But, yeah, could be.
Yeah. So last week you and I both went 3-3 with our locks, so we both got 4 points. Porth went 3-2, did not get his lock, and he had a baseball game rained out, so Porth has kind of a weird
That's what you get.
So here's where we are right now in weekend winners. I'm 70-38, 16-2 on my locks, 86 points, and somehow I don't live in Las Vegas yet. I don't know how, but we'll see. I may not. I mean, I'm going out west next week, so I may just stop and live in Vegas. Porth is 53-53, 62 points. He's 9-9 on his locks. You are 50-58. 59 points, 99 on your locks. You are but 3 points behind Ryan Porth. So that is
I made a furious comeback.
That is the drama that we have. Now here's the question. Elijah, are you picking for Ryan Porth today?
He never sent me any picks.
Yeah.
So that's
yes.
usually the barometer I go by. If he doesn't send me anything, then
if
your
you're
boy's
really
shooting from the hip.
If you really like Robby, you could you could sabotage Porth, but
could completely go full Chicago Black Sox.
You could
and blow it.
That's right.
Not since 1919 have we seen anything like this.
Oh, my goodness.
Could be what happens. All right, with that in mind, let's get rolling today on this edition of Weekend Winners. We begin with Nashville SC taking on Philadelphia, the money line. And remember, you can go Nashville SC win, Nashville SC loss, Nashville SC draw. They drew last week in this competition. Joe Rexrode, we begin with you. The money line for Nashville SC and Philadelphia.
They drew last week, and Porth got that. You and I picked Nashville SC to win. I got away from my draw tendencies. I'm going back to them. Give me the draw.
Taking the draw again in the competition. It served you well quite often this year in the Nashville SC money line pick. Elijah Campbell, Nashville SC, and Philadelphia. Win, lose, draw for Nashville SC.
Ooh, a draw is so enticing here, but I want to get this. I want to make this interesting. I'm going to go Nashville SC.
Okay.
I like the win against Toronto earlier. I know they just drew against Montreal. And,
Oui.
I'm and a win feels imminent. You can't just draw forever, and I want to die on that hill right there.
There you go. Give me Philadelphia in this matchup. I, too, am moving away from the draw. I'm tempted to go back there, but I think Philadelphia gets it done this week.
Got all three possibilities.
Different ones there with Nashville SC and Philadelphia. Moving on to Tampa Bay and Montreal. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. The Lightning are favored by 1.5. Elijah Campbell, we begin with you. The Lightning minus 1.5. You going with Tampa? You going with Montreal?
Give me that Montreal money line, baby. They're going to win one in this series, and that's going to be tonight.
So Elijah going with Montreal in this game tonight between Tampa Bay and Montreal. Joe Rexrode, Tampa and the Habs tonight in Game 3. Lightning minus 1.5.
Okay, sorry, just muted myself. I already called the sweep in my called shot, but I am going Montreal with the 1.5. I think they're going to give everything they have tonight. I think they're going to be right there, be very close. It's a 1-goal game. Tampa Bay prevailing, but give me Montreal in the 1.5.
Give me Tampa Bay minus 1.5. Tampa Bay scores an empty netter to win by 2 with a minute left in the game. So give me
that. Could also very well happen.
That's why the 1.5 is so difficult in hockey, because you never know when those empty netters are going to come into play. Moving ahead to Game 6 between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks minus 2 in this game coming up in Game 6. I believe tomorrow is when that game will take place. I'll start on this one. Give me the Bucks plus the 2 and make it my lock. I think the Bucks are going to win outright in this competition. I like the minus 2 for the Hawks. That gives you a little wiggle room. That way, if the Hawks win by 1, I still win this bet. Give me the Bucks plus 2 and make it my lock.
Guarantee.
Joe Rexrode, the Bucks and the Hawks. The Hawks minus 2 as the favorites in this game.
That was going to be my lock too. I won't make it my lock, but
you
yes,
can do it.
I feel good. Yeah, it's okay.
Nobody's catching up with you at this point.
We'll mix up the locks a little bit, but yeah, I'm big on the Bucks with 2 points all day.
Elijah Campbell, Hawks minus 2 in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Final. Who you taking?
Hey, I think we should make it a clean sweep here. The artist formerly known as the Milwaukee Butts is what I like to call them earlier.
That's true. I did call them that.
They won't play like that this week. I think they figured some things out. Capella's not completely healthy. He played last night, wasn't himself. He was really the X factor this series all along, even with Trae Young. If they can just figure out how to keep him out of that soft spot of the zone or in the middle of the paint, I like the Bucks' chances even without Giannis to advance.
They were definitely the Milwaukee Butts in Game 4. That is for
without
sure.
a doubt. It was
There's
horrific.
No question about it. All right, moving on to the individual portion of the competition. Joe Rexrode, we begin with you. Your first individual pick of the weekend, and no NBA well to continually go back to as well, unless I guess you want to get into all these player props.
Yeah, I could do that. But, this is a good example of why I'm looking forward to my next picks being Pigskin Pick'em football picks because, I mean, we're running dry. So I'm looking at the baseball schedule. I'm going to be consistent with this too. I'm looking at over-unders. I'm looking at White Sox Tigers. I'm looking at Lance Lynn, Casey Mize. Heck of a pitching duel. Over under 8.5. Give me the under and make that my lock.
Wow.
Sox Tigers under lock.
Wow. Guarantee. That's got to be the first time Rexrode has used his lock on a baseball game. It's got to be. Well, I mean, a professional baseball game.
Yeah,
You've used it on college.
A lot of Vanderbilt locks have helped me out. Yes.
There you go. First individual pick of the day from Rexrode. Elijah, your first individual pick of the day is what?
I'll go to the Diamond as well, and I want to pick up with a theme from the last hour or two, and I want to show some Padres love. Minus 1.5 against the Phillies tonight. Yes. So go ahead and give me the Dads to win tonight by more than a run.
Very nice. Padres minus 1.5 against the Phillies. My first individual selection, I go back to my beloved Australian League football. A battle of the Titans today coming up between West Coast and Sydney. Give me West Coast on the money line. It's about dead even money right now. Give me West Coast. Get the job done against Sydney. Joe, your thoughts?
I love it. So, wait, I want to go back, actually, last week.
Last week I did Gold Coast.
You had Gold Coast against North Melbourne. Yeah. So, North Melbourne broke your heart.
They did.
Tonight, though, you were down
72-63 defeat last week.
North Melbourne's on the no-bet list now.
Are you sort of just betting against the biggest cities in Australia? Is that kind of what you're doing here?
Yes, okay, that's my strategy.
Rooting for the little guy. I like
I'm on West Coast. Take down Sydney today. I guess that'd be tomorrow in the Australian League football match. Elijah Campbell, your second individual selection is what?
My second individual, my last two are going to be Euros. The Euro competition going on right now.
Okay.
Been some great drama going on in that. Belgium, Italy, the big game tomorrow. This is a little riskier, but I meant to say this in college shots too. If Belgium makes it past Italy tomorrow, or today at 2 o'clock on ESPN, they will win the whole thing. So give me Belgium to beat Italy today at 2 o'clock.
There you go. Belgium against Italy in that matchup in the Euros. Joe Rexrode, your second individual selection is what?
I like it. Now I feel like I should have been.
You need to do a deeper dive on Australian rules football.
I know. I should have. I should have been a little bit more creative here. But how about a little Dodgers, little Nationals, another pitching duel?
Scherzer,
Julio U for the Dodgers. You're talking an over/under of 8. Again, I'm going with the pitchers. Good pitching beats good hitting. Give me the under 8. Dodgers Nationals.
Joe doesn't care about that spider tack not being on the ball.
Not
Just
anymore.
Going and taking the unders all over the place.
Overrated.
Give me the Cubs plus 1.5 today against Elijah Campbell's beloved Reds. I think the Cubs get it done. I know Sonny Gray's on the mound. He's a soft spot in my heart. But give me the Cubs plus the 1.5 today. And I'll kick us off for our final round of individual selections as well. The Braves starting to play a little bit better. Give me the Braves minus 1.5 against the Miami Marlins today. Almost at Florida Marlins. It's been a while since they've been in Florida.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Give me the Braves minus 1.5 against the Marlins. So 2 baseball picks to close out my bets here today on Weekend Winners. Elijah Campbell, your final individual selection is what?
And this will be my lock too. We're sticking it to the competition overseas across the pond here. I don't like betting on England at all. They are notorious for blowing these kind of tournaments right here, especially when they have really good teams.
They're
like
the
they
Toronto
do right
Maple
now.
Leafs of the Euros.
They are the Maple Leafs of European international competition. However, they're playing the Ukraine. The Ukraine in a miracle win over Sweden in the round of 16 to even get to this point. They're kind of the Cinderella of this tournament alongside Switzerland. My guarantee, my lock, will be England to take down Ukraine by a lot.
Guarantee.
By a lot. What does a lot mean?
And we'll go in regulation because in soccer, too, you have to beat them in
That's
the
true.
bets are regulation. Regulation, extra time.
That is true.
Since there are no ties. So
there you go. No ties in this competition.
Both my picks are regulation.
There you go.
To clarify.
Joe Rexrode, your final selection in weekend winners for this week.
All I have to say to you is Ukraine not weak.
That's right.
Anybody get that reference?
No.
No?
No.
Man, watch some Seinfeld. All right.
I was 4 when that came out.
It's out there. You can find it. It's worth it. I swear it's worth it. All right. I gotta go over with something, right? Twins Royals. Over under is 10. J.A. Happ against Brady Singer. I think we got a wild one in Kansas City tonight.
That's right.
So give me the over, Twins Royals 10.
And there we go. The over. That is today's edition of Weekend Winners. Gentlemen, good luck in the competition coming up this week. And a competition rapidly coming to an end. Not too long before Pigskin Pick'em picks back up here on the show.
Weekend winners will soon be Pigskin Pick'em.
That's right.
We're not going to pick preseason games, though, right?
See what happens.
I mean, I guess we could.
See what happens on that front. ESPN 94.9 is the home for Nashville Sounds baseball. Tonight, the Sounds take on the Louisville Bats, the AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. The pregame show with Jeff Hem starts at 6:50, and first pitch is at 7:05. Nashville Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by 312 Pizza Company. When we come back, it is time for NSC Pick to Click. Nashville SC taking on Philadelphia tomorrow at Nissan Stadium. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 to guess the goal scorer for Nashville SC. If you get it right, you'll win a prize pack brought to you by Camarena Tequila and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game as well. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
find the back of the net in the upcoming Nashville SC match. Robby and Rexrode make their picks to click for the match and welcome a listener to do the same. NSC Pick to Click on ESPN 1025 The Game is brought to you by Camarena Tequila.
And it is time for NSC Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. Nashville SC taking on Philadelphia tomorrow at Nissan Stadium, back at home on the pitch. Right now the standings are thus: Joe Rexrode at 1 in this competition, our listeners at 1 as well. Ryan Porth / Elijah Campbell at 0. Robbie Stanley remains at 0 as well. So we'll see if we can fix that heading into this match tomorrow for Nashville SC taking on Philadelphia. And Elijah, you have the first pick today.
All right.
So we go to you without further ado in this edition of NSC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila.
All right, I gotta get poor Elijah on the board here. The combination of Porth and I.
That's
and I'm gonna
correct.
go Hani Mukhtar.
Hani Mukhtar,
The leading scorer. So I'll take that with the first pick.
there you go. Hani Mukhtar off the board, selected by Elijah Campbell today in the competition. Joe Rexrode, you are up next. Therefore, can no longer justify your claims that I have messed with the draft order. Joe Rexrode, you're the second pick today. Who is your selection in Nashville SC Pick to Click?
But I didn't get the first pick.
You got it the last time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, but before I make a pick, because we got Gold Club call-ups, like we have everybody here? Anybody know?
I'm not helping you.
You're not
in this
helping me with
competition.
this?
This is on you.
Oh, sorry. All
So
right,
you
fine.
pick a player.
I mean, I suppose that I could help myself there. I'm gonna stick with Hawkinson.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna be consistent. It worked with me
2 big ones a few games ago.
a couple games ago, and I stuck with Yarncroke through some thick
You
and
did.
thin, and ultimately it paid off for me. So give me Hawkinson.
Hawkinson, the selection for Joe Rexrode in the competition. Give me Daniel Rios in the competition. I think he finds his way on the board tomorrow against Philadelphia. Give me Daniel Rios.
Okay.
So that is today's edition of NSC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. We've been having an interesting conversation all show long, both with Victor Arvidsson and the trade to the LA Kings, and also name, image, and likeness as well. A lot of athletes have been thrown out there in terms of people they would like to see, maybe in the past or even now, with sponsorships as well. And Elijah, you sent us kind of a cool piece, and this coming from TSU, about a deal that was reached with Hersey Miller coming in, TSU freshman, son of Master P, signing a deal with Web Apps America for $2 million.
Love it.
$2 million. Miller will be a brand ambassador for the tech company who's committed to supporting HBCU leaders.
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's the best one so far. I think that's our answer. What's the best endorsement?
4-year deal
million.
worth $2 million.
I mean,
I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And, potentially some benefit there directly for TSU. But regardless, that's a big, big deal. It was a big deal when they got him, of course.
Sure.
But, I mean, that's the kind of stuff. It's amazing to me. I guess I didn't necessarily anticipate the avalanche that we'd have. You knew there'd be stuff. But it's been quite – people have been ready for this. They've been preparing for this day.
Absolutely. It's been awesome to see. That's probably my new favorite at the top of the list. I don't know. The PetSmart one was pretty good. That one's definitely my new favorite. But PetSmart has been good. It's still going to be, every time I look at Bo Nix this year, the first thing I'm going to think of is Milo Sweet Tea.
Yeah.
There he is out there just chucking that ball down the field, going to the sideline, downing a bottle of Milo Sweet Tea. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's going to be – I mean, and there's – depending on his performance, there's going to be a lot of Milo Sweet Tea, commentary. So,
absolutely.
Well, obviously, you open yourself up to that, but that's okay. I mean, you'd rather like that than just be ripped like Garantano was with no
financial incentive
with
whatsoever.
no like Gus's Good Times deli money to help ease the pain.
That is true. There was more than one Milo Sweet Tea better at home than on the road joke yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Which to your point that you brought this up, look, I agree. I think there's a difference between criticizing professional athletes and criticizing college athletes. I'm not saying you can't criticize college athletes, but I think sometimes you go a little bit too over the top. Like when you're tweeting recruits, you have a problem. You need to step back a little bit.
And a lot of people have a problem.
A lot of people have a problem. We've noticed that for sure. But it is interesting. This is going to open things up a little bit with these products for sure, of maybe a little bit more criticism coming about, which, I mean, the Milo Sweet Tea thing is funny. As long as it's harmless, I'm cool with it.
Well, so here's an example. But this is where I think it's still different. Like, if you're a fan of a pro team and the pro team, you know there's a salary cap, and your team that you love pays a player X amount of money and that player doesn't perform,
sure,
right? That, like, so Hersey Miller, let's say he's not very good as a freshman at TSU. Is there gonna be like all this anger at him because he's a brand ambassador for Web Apps America?
Probably
not. Made a lot of money. I mean, it's the indirect money. I still think now it will, though. Like people who get the huge Nike deal or something. Yeah. You got a 5-star quarterback, and then the 5-star quarterback gets beat out by the 3-star quarterback, and the 5-star quarterback had the huge Nike deal. Okay, so there's probably more discussion around that now. So, but again, if you're in those shoes, you'll take that.
Yeah,
it's already bad. And real quick, by the way, Vingan had an answer for me, and I had no idea what he's talking about. He just texted me Rogaine.
Is that for me to sponsor, or you for like lack of hair?
Well, no, he was talking about. I asked what would Willie D have sponsored in college. Wow. Vingan taking shots. I hope you're listening, Willie D.
Off the top rope.
He's so bitter about those missing gift cards.
Right?
He really is.
He's still got it. Vingan's going to be he's going to be in here next week.
He's going to be in here next week. Joe Rexrode out next week on vacation. I'm going to miss you, buddy.
I'm going to miss you
too.
Hope
you have a good time.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. But I'll miss you.
Adam Vingan coming in Tuesday through Thursday next week. We will not have a show Monday in observance of the 4th of July, Independence Day coming up this weekend. Speaking of that, hope everybody has a good time this weekend.
Be safe.
Celebrating the independence of our nation. Be safe. I know if you live on the outskirts, fireworks could be involved, lighting those off. I may or may not be lighting off a few of these weekends, so hopefully we'll come back in with our fingers intact.
That's right.
Next week.
Be safe there, too. Vingan, one last comment. Sweet tea is gross. That's a good way to go out this week.
That's a very good way to insult America on a weekend where you should be celebrating. When we come back, that does it for us this weekend. We'll be back coming up on Tuesday. Darren, Donica Chase is next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.